I'm Yoni Breziner. Is everybody signed in? Make sure that I think I got everybody a card. If I didn't give you a card and you want one, come see me later. I want my wallet. So I'm Yoni Breziner. I'm a broker associate, which means I ended up getting my broker's license after the salesperson's license, which most of you guys recently got, right? Is anybody here experienced just new to the company, or yeah, great. Anybody else kind of just newer to the real estate business? Everybody else? How long, just so I have a sense, like how long has it been that you've got your license? 3 months. 3 months?
Since October.
October, okay. October, right around the same time, everybody? 2 months? Even, okay, cool. So, okay, so months, awesome. And you've been working towards it, which is awesome that you're here. Okay, so that helps me so I have a gauge, because for that means for the most part, you're either now starting, hopefully, your first deal or working towards your first deal, right? Cool. Okay, good. And Betsy, how long have you been in business?
Since
1992. 92. And have you been active throughout?
No, I took a little hiatus for a couple of years.
Okay. So you've been active in recent, or are you now coming back after a break?
I'm just now coming back after a break.
Okay, perfect. And you know, some things may be exactly the same, and some things, you know, with technology and stuff have changed a lot in recent years, especially. And I'm happy to maybe reflect on some of that stuff. I've been doing this since 2005. I got my salesperson's license in August of 2005. At that point, everybody around me was making money, like easily in the business. That's, for whatever reason, that's where the market was. It seemed like, you know, get your license and make a lot of money. That was the formula. You just had to show up, apparently. I got in. It took me 9 months to do my first deal, and I think that was a buyer in Spring Valley who still owns that property and is actually a client and friend. And then I did. In my first year, I learned one of my biggest lessons to learn in this business, which is careful what you ask for, because you might just get it, okay? So I went out and I was like, okay, I live in this condo complex. I hate seeing other signs go up in front of me in my own neighborhood. If I just did something, those signs could be my signs. So I went out, I did a little bit of door knocking. I kind of, you know, networked a little bit in the neighborhood. And I did 6 transactions that year just in that complex. And then I realized, cool, I mean, that's not a bad thing by any means. But then had I done the same thing, any kind of effort, focused attention on one thing, what I asked for, then I could have gotten that maybe at a higher price point in a neighborhood where it might have led to different avenues of business. That community is pretty much an entry-level, you know, first-time owner type of community. For the most part, some people will downsize into it, but you know, there's no elevators and things like that. So if they were downsizing, it would be for different reasons. As opposed to a community where I'm living in now, which I would categorize as more, and I work now, you know, as I kind of did then, which I would categorize as more as maybe an entry level for the Penasquitos, you know, zip code for somebody trying to get into a detached or as close to detached as possible after a twin home. But a lot of people move up from there. Sometimes they move down from there. So it's at the minimum, it's a higher average price point, which is always a good place to be. Okay. So, you know, saw the market crash and burn. A lot of people got really hurt 2008 or so, you know, when the market got really rough. And I just continued to build my business regardless of what the markets told you. So that was kind of the other lesson. And for many years, sadly, I didn't continue the trend entirely, but I always grew from the year prior. And then in the last couple of years, I've seen a little bit of wavering, but the volume, you know, wavering in terms of the number of units of sales that I do, but the volume has been pretty consistent with only, you know, when you have kids, you do really well for whatever reason. The 2 years I had my 2 children, I had my best years in those years. That's awesome. My wife would argue towards another good year. I'm gonna have to figure out a better way. So if you ever have questions for me, I'm pretty open, and Holly worked with me for a little while, so she kind of knows my style, which is a little bit of everything at all times at the same time. A little scatter sometimes, so I'm going to try to stick to our syllabus and our stuff, but if I don't and we run out of time, which is hugely likely, then I'd rather just answer your questions, tell you guys stories about stuff you may want to hear that's real practical perhaps, and hopefully. And I'll apologize in advance for those who really want to make sure you cover anything, and my door's open for down the road if we do miss something and you have questions about it. Okay. Dave Hastings is going to be our featured agent today. He'll be coming to talk about building your business. Okay. And as kind of a side interesting note, I have huge amounts of respect for Dave. He's been doing this for double the amount of time I have him, at least. He was my agent when I bought my first property before I was in the real estate business. We knew each other through some social circles. He's a good friend of my uncle's, and he made it a little easy, apparently. So it might have been his fault that I got into the business, thinking also not only was the market pretty hot at the time, but he also made the process seem pretty easy. And it's funny because the agent that I almost cheated on Dave with when I was looking at property and went and looked at other property with another agent turned out to be another close family type of relationship, who I ended up working with the one and only time in my years of working that I actually ever worked with on a team. I joined this group, and now her daughter, who's younger than me, but has been in she got her broker's license and her real estate license right around the same time I did. So we've kind of been on parallel paths, but now she's doing well over 100 transactions a year, one of the top here in San Diego, which is awesome. I think we'll just dig right into it. So the takeaway, any questions at this point, just on my life or my career or anything, just to give you any kind of reference, you can always ask. Okay. Another makeup of my business, just so you guys have a sense, and you'll hear from me later on towards the end of on February 2nd on a Friday, I'll be in teaching about making and receiving offers. So I'll be like the featured, like Dave is today. And Dave's coming in early, so I should probably get rocking because he's going to come in at 1:30 instead of 2, and then he'll be done at 3 instead of 3:30, I think it was, and then I'll pick up again. Okay. We're talking about building your business, right? Everybody's on part 2, section 2, build your business. And some of the key takeaways that we want to take away from today is understanding what a database is. Everybody have a sense of what a database is. You guys probably come from different industries or different experiences in life, and some people have just never dealt with a database. Everybody's set with their database, and like what they're using. I think Rev Up last week, they had you guys talking about that being one of the first things you want to do, correct? Is getting your contacts organized so you know who's who and who you know, basically, in San Diego, or even outside of San Diego. Okay. Does anybody not have that set up yet, or at least a plan? Okay. Do you have a plan? You know where you want to, what tool you're going to use, whether it's a spreadsheet or some kind of. Sorry?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Don't overthink it. What have people done? Is everybody using some kind of a CRM or even just an Excel spreadsheet?
I put mine in EDGE.
EDGE.
We're going to be paying for it anyway.
Exactly.
Use it.
Yep. What are you guys doing? EDGE as well? EDGE. Everybody mostly went with EDGE.
I will use it.
Perfect. There's nothing perfect out there. This is a tool. Like she said, you're paying for it already.
Why don't we start there?
Absolutely. Start, keep it simple. Don't overthink it. There's nothing perfect out there. I've talked to many agents in this office producing at different levels, and some have spent a lot of time and money and energy trying to get their database set up. You probably worked with Brad's, which was super intense, Infusionsoft and the whole thing, and it's tens of thousands of dollars, and it doesn't have to be that way at all. Okay, I'm using Top Producer. I've used others. Brian Buffini's Referral Maker. I used Contextually for a while. They all work. They all don't work if you don't work with them, you know. And so it's just a matter of, you know, my for 218, I'll tell you guys right now, like where my head is, and you'll laugh probably, Holly. I have two like main themes in my head for 18. Number one is focus, like figure out exactly what the one thing is that I'm supposed to be doing, and the one goal that's going to, you know, those things that are going to get me to that one goal, and then it's the same thing almost, but keep it simple, you know. Yeah. I wrote on my big whiteboard in my office, focus and KISS, keep it simple, stupid, you know. So just you know, that's what I'm doing. You guys can take that as an initial piece of advice in this business. You know, you'll hear it over and over and over. You've probably already heard other people say it, which is this business is simple, but it's not necessarily easy, right? But the simpler you keep it, the easier it will be, okay? So don't overthink the CRM. Don't get all, you know, trying to get it perfect before you make your first phone call, that you need to categorize everybody that you know, you know, just make sense of who you've got. Call them. That's the one thing you have to remember to do, is just call that, right? As opposed to organizing that database perfectly, okay? If you can, take advantage, well, before you form bad habits and get into a lot of deals where you have limited time, or where you have more limits in your time, then organize it, right? Organize it, but as a priority, call it first. You know, after you've called everybody, figured out who you called, when you're gonna call them again, you know, and track the results of what it was. But primarily, I don't care if you track or don't track or whatever, as long as you're calling them. Don't spend all your time setting up how you're gonna track them. Okay. I've been super guilty of that, and if there was, again, you know, early lessons, if I learned stuff like in this kind of a setting early on, that you guys have the opportunity to do through this type of a program, and even hearing it from other agents, you know, because not every company does it in this format, where you might get instruction, but it's not necessarily agents in the field, you know, who are giving that instruction, so it's not always the same. So just, yeah, form those habits early, right? So we understand what a database is. We understand how a database will benefit your business, right? I mean, we always call it the lowest hanging fruit, right? That what you put into your database is the people who know you, right? Chances are, if you call them and you say, hey, it's a vet, they're going to be like, hi, vet, right? As opposed to who, which vet, right? With me, it's Yoni, so there's not that many Yonis in their database, and their Rolodexes and their phones, so when it's Yoni, they usually know which one it is. But when you get to a certain amount of names, or how you acquire those names, or how you know, the quality of that database matters as well, because it's your time spent calling them, and it's your stamp that you're looking and spending on to put yourself in front of them as well. And the quality matters, you know, in terms of the quality of the database, because if you're counting on whatever percentage of that database producing X amount of deals per year, then you want to know that you have good, you know, solid basis or database, right, of which to extrapolate those expectations from, right, in terms of the transactions that you can reasonably expect to get out of your database. And we talk about the database initially because we call it the lowest hanging fruit. These are people who you already know, who they know you, and hopefully they like you, and thereby then they would trust you and do business with you. Much cheaper and faster to be able to do business with the people who know you and like you and trust you than the people you have to spend money to get to know before they decide if they like you or don't like you, have no reason to trust you yet, right? Any questions on how to set up and organize the database? I mean, I have my recommendations, and again, it's going to start with keep it simple. Potential buyer, potential seller. How do you know if they're a potential buyer or seller? If they don't own a home, they're a potential buyer. If they own a home, they're a potential seller. That's simple. you don't know, there's ways to look up their name in the public record to see if they own property. If your list is super long, that'll take a while. You can hire someone or do it yourself, you know? Right now you have time, and it's important to actually dedicate your time to having a good sense of who your database is, but don't overthink about it. Buyers, sellers, and then people most likely to be buyers and sellers for you, or to refer you to other buyers and sellers, right? People who like you enough that maybe they've done business with you, they're statistically not gonna buy another home, probably move their family for another, 5 to 7 years. And so you're hoping that they're still valuable to you in that period of time by referring you to other of their friends and family, right? So how do I actually have categorized it, and I've made it less simple than it needs to be, than it could be. But I know who are owners, who are renters, who's in San Diego. Because I do a lot with the Jewish community in San Diego, I've figured out who's Jewish in San Diego, who's Jewish and not in San Diego, you know, and then even, quite frankly, I have them as A's, B's, and C's, and all those other subcategories of whether they're owners or not owners and in San Diego or not in San Diego fall into A, B, and C, and that's likelihood of doing business with me or referring business to me. And that's the criteria. Do you like me enough and trust me enough to do business with me? Do I know that for sure yet, or do I need to find out? And if I need to find out, then they're probably a little bit lower on the list. Your job is to find out, which goes to one of the key things, which we haven't even gotten to, but which, you know, not just organizing, but also qualifying that database. Because you might have put down a name of somebody or 10 people. If you have a list of 20 and 10 of them are people that you think will do business with you, but until you call and qualify them and ask them for sure, you don't know if their uncle or their brother or their sister-in-law is also an agent. And as much as they like you, they're going to be obligated in their mind to work with them. And you just want to know that because you don't want to put them in the uncomfortable position of asking for their business and them having to say no. And you don't want to spend the stamp asking in the first place if you know that it's not yours. Focus on the ones that could be yours, you know. And then anybody thought a little bit about another takeaway. So we're going to take away what the database is, how to benefit you, how to set it up and organize it. And I'm saying qualify it, right?
So you're qualifying before you even put them in the database, basically, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Ideally.
yeah, exactly. Like you want to keep your database as less compromised as possible. You know, you want to guard that. It's your business. It's your motor. You want it to be as clean. You know, the analogy in this, in a lot of this material is that, you know, I think I read the one from when I took this, you know, 5 years ago when I came to Keller Williams, and there was an analogy about it being the motor of your business, and you want to keep it clean. You can change the oil, make sure it's got good stuff in it, and you're not, you know, ignoring it, right? And then keep feeding it. So keep feeding it is how to systematically communicate with your database, right? You're making sure that you're in front of them, keeping yourself foremost in their mind and the real estate and, you know, space in their mind. When they think of real estate, you want to think of you guys, right? And the thing is, even if they have an uncle or a cousin or whatever else, it doesn't mean that you can't earn that place in their brain as long as you've asked them if they would ever consider it, you know? And there are scripts for that you guys are going to come across because Keller Williams has amazing, great material, you know? And I'm happy to share some of mine, which I've picked up somewhere along the way, you know? So it's important that we report out. I know you guys have had homework, right? So we talked a little bit about what to expect. It's important that we talk about the daily report out. So, you know, why is that important? You know, it's important that you guys do what you're supposed to do, obviously, but why is it important that we actually go through and report out in this setting, in the classroom? Because this is only like the second time we get together, right? As a classroom, as a group, basically. So know it's like it's not going to stop. We're going to report our numbers. It's like a little embarrassing sometimes. Maybe I didn't do the work. Maybe I did do the work. Maybe I didn't get the results. Maybe I want to share that I got an awesome result, and that's always encouraging for everybody. And it's not about, oh, how come they didn't, I didn't, or whatever. We have a lot of, you'll eventually take bold, probably with Keller Williams, which is another awesome training. And in bold, we have bold laws. So just ideas or the things that we hold to be true that we kind of live by. And one of those things is that you don't judge your insides from other people's outsides, right? So don't worry about what other people are doing. Just know that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, and that you got your plan and you're executing, and it will come together. And don't worry that that person who doesn't seem to have their act together somehow still getting results, right? It'll come together. It took me 9 months, guys. 9 months to do one deal. It's like, and it's literally in a market where anybody had to just show up, breathe, fog a mirror, get a loan, sell the real estate. You know, it was that easy, and somehow it took me 9 months, right? Okay. And there's people who start first month and they've earned it, or they got lucky and they earned that luck too. You know, whatever it was. And so it's all good. Just focus on knowing that you guys are on track, doing the things that this model, Keller Williams system, has developed for everybody's success, you know? So we report because of accountability, right? We want to know that we're on track, and we want everybody to be on track. We don't care that everybody knows that we're on track. We don't, you know, it's not about that. It's just about making sure that you are doing what you're supposed to be doing and that you are on track to hit your goals. And the only way to know that is to track and measure that. And then when we report, we're just making sure we're holding everybody accountable. The accountability is one of the weakest parts of my business, by the way. When I was working with an assistant, it was like her unofficial role was director of accountability, because I wanted to make sure that everything we were doing, we were looking back to make sure that we were on track and that we were on time with our schedule of what we wanted to do. How often we say, you know, things out and all that. So you guys have homework of the 10-10-4, right? That you're supposed to do. We talked about that. So
is the third session, is that correct?
what's that?
Mission 3 is 10-4?
Well, I mean, you're going to be adding the 10-10-4 is the 10 contacts that you're adding to your database every day, the 10 connections you're making, the 10 notes that you've written, right? And then it should be 10 homes that you've previewed, although that one's not a daily, that's like a weekly, right? So if you're going out, what part of, you know, educating yourself is also just getting a sense of what the market is. So if we can go to the Penasquitos Caravan, which is normally on Wednesdays, go to the Pave one on Fridays, or the Rancho Bernardo one on Thursdays, so the closest ones. Friday is also Mira Mesa, if you guys have any reason to focus on that area. It's never a bad idea to just go to the caravans, get to know what the new inventory is, and it'll keep you fresh, so that if and when you have, you know, let's say you end up holding an open house, and somebody says, I'm looking for X, Y, and Z, and it's not the house that you're standing in, right? You might have already seen the house that might fit what they're looking for, and then you can go for, instead of, well, let me search for you, you come from, oh, I saw a house that would be perfect for you already. And that's going to be a lot more of a conversion type of opportunity at that open house than, hey, then I don't know what's out there, I'm going to search. But just putting yourselves in the day-to-day of actually going out in the field and looking at property and just having a sense of what the dollar value is for a property in X neighborhood, and switch it around so you get to know a little bit, especially if you have some kind of a database and you have some sense of where that database is organized. Mine isn't, it's spread out all over San Diego, right? But half of my business happens to be Penasquitos, Rancho Bernardo, Carmel Valley, Mira Mesa. Half. The other half is everywhere, right? Well, I don't go to every caravan. I go to the ones where half my business keeps me in the know. Okay. So making the calls, adding numbers to your database, seeing property, right?
I have a question. Relating to the 10-4 daily activities, it says you need to write notes each day. I mean, people that happen to meet. Is that 10 notes has to be handwritten, or can it be email?
I recommend it's a handwritten note. There's two reasons for it, in my mind. Number one, you took the time to personally write it out, which is a lot more personal than an email, which is a lot colder. Number two, it takes more time, more effort. You got to lick a stamp, you got to put it in the mail, the whole thing. And number two, it comes in it. When you get mail, you're kind of, I mean, it's not a bill. It's kind of exciting. Like, when do you get mail that isn't a bill? It's like your birthday, maybe. That's it, right? So somebody sends you a thank you card in the mail. It's like A, kind of fun. B, it's that more personal. It makes much more of a lasting impression in that person's mind. And it's not like you have to think really hard, how am I going to come up with 10 different cards to write? If you guys like what Mr. Dave has to say today, you can write him a thank you note. That's 1 out of 10. You know what I'm saying? If you don't like it, don't give it to him. And that's fine, and he's going to be okay too. And then you'll write 10 other cards, right? It could be the 10 people you spoke to. It could be you have the address for the home that you previewed at the caravan today. Dear homeowner, who I haven't even taken the time to look up your name because I don't really care. Thank you for letting me see your home and help me get to learn something about the real estate market today. There's a card. It'll get you to the habit of sending a card, right? The more you make those cards more personal or relevant, whatever, they're gonna have a result much more than an email, in my opinion. And you should write the emails too. But unless you know, when we talk about a contact, right? We're talking about 10 contacts per day. That's not 10 phone calls and 10 voicemail messages left, and then you're done. I mean, we're talking about a legitimate conversation where there was a real back and forth, and there was ideally, real estate came up where you asked for business, right? Who do you know that I can speak to? That's, you know, who do you know that's looking to buy a home, sell a home, or invest in real estate that I can speak to, right? Or hey, I'm doing an open house, come visit me. No, you can't? Great, thanks. Who else do you know that would come visit me? You know, whatever version of that is a contact, but a voicemail, nothing, a text, nothing. If they call back from a voicemail left, and now you have a conversation, now you've got a contact. Okay. All right, Mr. Dave's time is actually counted for here today. So I'm gonna let him jump in. We didn't get very far, but we will. But I think you guys are gonna take a lot out of Mr. Dave. And we'll get into, like I said, if there's stuff that we need to get back into, we will for sure when he's done. I told him a little bit about how you were my agent, and you're the greatest ever. And you know, particularly, I mean, you've got the right person teaching this class, guys, because he's been doing this for a very, very long time, and going back to the very, very beginning, in my view, not to take anything away at all from what he does, but I think he, more than most, is a really good example of keeping it simple and being very successful in doing it that way. And he doesn't complicate his life with the crazy CRM and, you know, all these other shiny objects, which I've spent way too much money on. With no further ado, Mr. Dave Hastings.
Thank you, Yoni. So I'm just going to start by erasing this board. We'll just put up some things here. I talk kind of fast, so if I say something that doesn't sink in, you have a question on, I want this class to be interactive. So my name is Dave Hastings. I've been selling real estate for 31 years now. And this is my third time teaching this class, and I like this class because to me this class is really, this is the core of the business right here. Okay, you can go out, you get a great salesperson, you can meet all these people, but if you don't know what to do with them, you don't know how to be in touch with them, forget about it. Okay, and for all the millennials in here thinking that Facebook is going to be your thing and all this other stuff, forget about it. Okay, this business is all about the people, always will be. The more everybody goes that way, go the other way. And to me, that's been, when I look through this sheet, it's the same stuff that was taught to me 31 years ago when I first started real estate. The exact same stuff. The only thing that's different is back then there were no computers that people were using. So I had to do everything on, you know, I had to keep little index cards on people. Today with CRMs, you're able to keep track of more people in a timely fashion. I'll explain to you what do you do with that. 3 years in the business, I got a computer. Didn't know what I was supposed to do with it. People in the office looked at me like I was some kind of NASA scientist. By the way, I am the least techie person that you will meet. Every time I get to the copy machine, the girls in the front just want to cry. So I can't even handle a copy machine, let alone a computer. But I knew I needed one, and I knew that's what was happening and coming out in the industry, because we're all about information. That's what this business is all about. So, and I'll explain to you how you can use technology to make this people-oriented. So, one of the, my goal for this class, I want to make this the best, no offense to anybody else, but I want this to be the best Ignite class that you guys have ever had. Okay, so I'm gonna jump in. I'm gonna give you real-world stuff. I may, skip past some of the stuff in the book, in the sense that they have it, but it's the same stuff that's in there. I'm just applying it towards real-world experience that I've had and that I've seen. The other thing is I started out in this business and I wanted to get things rolling quickly, and I've tried, I have done cold calling, I have done for sale by owner, I have done expires, I have done cold door knocking, and my business today is virtually 100% referral. I get the oddball lead off the internet every now and then, but I don't go looking for that. That just something that just comes my way just from having a website and whatever the case may be. I'm not going to propose one way is better than the other. Everybody's different. The challenge with this business is that there's a lot of ways to skin the cat, and they all work. You just have to find what works for you. I mentored with a guy and have been for the last 20 years, and he built a model, maybe 25 years, and his business model is all open houses. I hate open houses, but there's a lot that I learned from him other than open houses. I mean, he does open houses, and he's the best at doing an open house. And a lot of his other business, obviously, is referral as well. He's been in the business for over 40 years. First of all, let me ask, who's in the business less than a year? Oh my goodness, the whole class, virtually. Anybody who's over a year? Okay. All right. Wow. Okay. So that's good in a way. You guys are starting with a clean slate. One of the biggest challenges in this business is that because we're salespeople, we also like being sold, and everybody wants to sell us something because we know we're an easy target. And in sales, you have a lot of rejection. So what are you trying to sell you? Oh, there's an easier way to do this. There's less rejection. This is a faster way. There's a better mousetrap. Screw it. There isn't any. There is no magic formula here. Just if you can just keep yourself away from those distractions, the better for you. As long as you're very clear on what you want to do, and there may be some better technology that will help you do some of the things you want to do. But 95% of that stuff is going to take you on a path that you don't want to go. Okay, you leave here with one thing. That's it. So, how many people here have been in San Diego less than 5 years? How long have you been in San Diego?
Since 2014.
Since 2014. Okay, and where are you from?
Originally born in Puerto Rico, raised in New York City,
Okay,
Bronx,
Bronx. Oh my goodness.
Yankee Stadium.
Oh wow, that's going to be an interesting accent. Puerto Rico to the Bronx to San Diego. Who else is in San Diego less than 5 years? Where are you from?
Temecula.
From Temecula. Okay, and you?
Temecula as well.
Temecula. Are you guys a team or just coincidence?
Yeah, we're roommates.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. And
Chicago.
from Chicago. And how long have you been in San Diego?
2 years.
2 years. Okay. So here's the reason I'm asking. One of the things. So let's talk about basically expectations a little bit. So the whole reason that you're here is we're talking about lead generation and how to do that. And there's scripts in here. You don't need me to tell you how to do the script. You guys can role play amongst yourself and figure out how to do that. The question is now that you've got those, now what do you do with it? And the reason I asked how many people have been here in San Diego, that this is not a complicated business. This is, and by the way, one of the things that I agree with everything that's in here, and well, people put this thing together a lot smarter than me. But one of the things that it says in here is that your business is reflective. The size of your database will determine the size of your bank account. I would change a little bit. I would say the quality of your database will reflect the size of your bank account. Okay, you can have a lot of people in there. It's like people that have like 1,000 people on Facebook. Like who has 1,000 friends? Seriously, So it's the same thing. You got 1,000. You go out and you get a farm of some neighborhood, and you're mailing 1,000 pieces out. Those aren't contacts. A contact to me is I call them up and I say, hi Jacqueline, this is Dave Hastings, and you're the first thing out of your mouth isn't who.
Yeah.
So that's not a contact. Okay, a contact means that you can call somebody And either they're gonna recognize your voice or they get your name and boom, right away, they know exactly who you are, okay? And in addition to that, you wanna ask, if it was an initial contact, Jacqueline, if you had a friend or if you or yourself or, if you or anybody in your, your friends, your relatives are looking for a real estate agent, do you have a real estate agent that you would call upon? And she says, yeah, my mom's in the business. Okay, there's, that's gone. Now, the next question is, your mom live in San Diego? You don't want to take that for granted either. So just dig a little bit deeper. Does that make sense? So contacts is somebody that knows you, would refer you, would use you, okay? And that's what I mean by the quality of your contacts. My database, just to give you an example, put things in perspective, my database is about 600, a little over 600 people. In 2014, pretty much right when I came to this office, it really jump-started my business again. It got me re-energized with a good vibe here. And I came in here in 2013. In 2014, I was the #1 Keller Williams agent in Southern California. Okay, and it wasn't because I sold some big homes. I didn't have a single sale that were over $1 million. Okay, what I'm saying is, I'm not saying that to brag to you. I'm saying that because I did that with 600 people. Okay, there are people that have farms of 4,000 to 5,000 people in there. You don't need to do that if you do this thing smart. Again, it's about the quality of your leads. By the way, I rarely work weekends. I pick up my kids from school 3 times a week at 3:30, one time at 2:30, and their long day. Actually, twice a week I pick them up at 5, twice at 3:30, and once at 2. Okay. Now, when I'm picking them up, I'm on the phone and I'm back and forth. But pretty much after about 5:30, I'm done. Okay. So it's not like I've got some crazy schedule and I'm on somebody's beck and call. So I just kind of want to change that mentality about real estate. This is a 24/7. You can be 24/7, and I did it. You can be 24/7 for about a year or two, and then you're going to burn out of the business. Okay. You got to recharge yourself at the same time. So I'm not going to get into that whole philosophy. Okay, no problem, Andy. So let's go back to somebody. Actually, I'm going to ask you guys to kind of interact. I have to put my glasses on and off all the time. So one of the things it talks about is, where do I start with my database? Where do I start? So this is the reason I asked you guys, who's been in San Diego more than 5 years, or less than 5 years? So who's been in San Diego more than 5 years? Okay. Aaron, so how long have you been in San Diego?
Around 10 years.
Around 10 years. Okay, you know a lot of people, right? Okay. What organizations do you belong to?
Church, school,
Which school?
classical academy.
I'm sorry?
My kids at classical academy.
Okay. Okay. And a church, and what else do you belong to?
I guess through my husband, his work.
Okay, what does he do?
A few people through him. He's an engineer,
Engineer at
software engineering
at which
company,
company?
Altium.
Okay, how many people are there?
I'm not sure.
Not sure, like 50, 100,
At this office, maybe 50, yeah.
50. Okay, good. So, mind if I use you as an example?
Go for it.
Okay. All right, so if I'm Aaron, how many people in your church?
Hmm.
Okay, this is a,
I'm guessing
Yes.
around 4,000.
whoa. Okay, now, is this with The Rock? Okay.
C3.
C3, okay, something similar. When you go to church, how many people are there at a given time? At the time that you go?
Well, at my campus, about 400 to 500.
About 400 to 500. Okay. All right. So let's just say 450. And at the school, how many parents at the school? How many families?
No idea.
Yes.
Maybe 600.
Okay. So a lot of big group of people, and then you got your husband. Okay, guys. Here's what I'm doing, just so that you have an idea. By the way, if you can't read my writing, I'm sorry. It's about the quality of your database. So if I'm doing my database, okay, right away, first thing I'm doing is I'm starting with my foundation. You guys are sitting on a gold mine and you don't even know it. But one of the things that that I find the biggest problem that people have in this business, they'd rather ask a stranger for business than their own
Easier.
family. It's not easier.
It's like an
It's
emotionally.
the rejection factor is different. And it's crazy because if one of you had a friend of yours that was in real estate or sold insurance, you'd go out of your way to send them business. And they'll do the same for you if you just ask them. If you don't ask them, they're just going to assume that you don't need the business. You're too busy. Okay? And by the way, after 2014, my business went like this because I rested on my laurels and I let it go to my head. And I think other people saw, well, this guy's busy. He doesn't need me sending referral. And believe me, I had a wake-up call in 2016 to get right back on the horn again. So it can go to your head. So this is by the way, if there's one thing I can leave you with this is a simple business. Simple. I'm not that smart of a guy. What's great about this business, you don't have to be smart. That's what's great about it. You just have to you have to do the right things at the right time, in the right way. That's all you have to do. This is a simple, simple business. So I'm going to show you guys, it's going to be so simple that most of it's going to go right over your head. Yeah, Eric.
What would you do if you didn't have that?
So how long have you been in business? Or how long have you been in San Diego?
10 years.
10 years.
My wife's a real estate agent. All our friends use her.
Use her. Okay, great.
And they all speak Chinese.
And they all speak Chinese.
Yeah.
So here's the thing, and there was somebody else, that's a great question.
Yeah.
There was the last one, I gave this class last year, there's an agent in our office who speaks Chinese, okay? And she speaks Chinese to the point that she has a very heavy accent in English. Very heavy, where sometimes you have to, listen to her, and, repeat it and tell me what you said.
You get used to it.
And you get used to it. But here's what I told her. I said, you've got this group right here. Okay, I don't write Chinese, but this is kind of what it looks like to me. Okay. And this is what it looks like to everybody
I
else.
take offense to that.
But her, yeah, I take offense. But here's the thing, it looks like that to everybody, but her and her sphere. And she wanted to go out and market to Americans, and I said, you're crazy. You're crazy. If you compete against anybody else in this room, you're a number, and you're going to have a hard time. I mean, I'm not saying in that, we're all in this PC world and whatever, but this is a very complicated transaction, and people want to make sure they can communicate clearly with the person that it's talking about. I said, if you're going out there and trying to compete with virtually anybody else in this room, you're crazy. You've got this market of Chinese people that I could never even touch.
I can't touch it.
And you can't touch them, and nobody else can. And they're all yours.
I heard.
Just hers, and go after that. Here's a great quote for you guys, by the way. When people ask me what's one of the best pieces of advice I ever got, write this down. Okay. Ride your horse in the direction it's going. Okay. Write that down. Think about that later. That's what this is. She has a market that nobody else can touch. Nobody else in the room. I said, how many people in here speak Chinese? She's the only one. 30 people in the room. She has that entire market to herself. Okay, now all she had to do was figure out, now I got this market, now how do I market to them? Now what do I do when I put them in a database? Does that make sense? Okay, so that was to her advantage. Ride your horse in the direction it's going. Keep it simple. So if I were you, so you can go through your own group. I mean, so you don't need this. You can also go, what are the things you like to do? Are you in a bowling league? Are you biking or hiking or swimming or social? The key is to be around people that you're going to see on a steady stream. Here's a nice thing about going to a church. You're going to see these people every single Sunday. Okay, I'm assuming you go to church every Sunday. You're going to see them every single Sunday, okay, in person, okay? And Aaron, you're not coming up to them and saying, hey, remember me, I'm Aaron, I'm in real estate. They'll go run the other way. But you, in your own way, you'll let them know that you're in real estate. Get involved in stuff, at the church. Get them, and then, when I'm involved in stuff, and there's a group of people, so at the bottom it just says, for my email, obviously it's got a sign in the office in real estate, so they're going to know I'm in real estate. So, and there's nothing wrong with that. They'd rather do business with somebody in the church than somebody out the church. Is that a fair statement? Okay. They'd rather do somebody that's involved with the school. Okay. Get involved in your school. Okay. And you're going to get to know these people. Now, here's the thing. Now, watch this. Let's just take it to the next level. And you, Eric, you'll figure this out from this example. I'm going to the school, and I want to find out what's happening. Who in the school knows more about what's happening than anybody else? Moms, PTA, who else? teachers,
Receptionist.
receptionists, there you go, usually number one. When I go to an office, that's who I butter up to the most. Everybody else walks past them, poo-poos them, whatever. Man, I am all about them. We'll get to that. I am all about the receptionist, big time. Okay? Principals, okay? Staff, admissions, they know who's coming, who's leaving, who's being transferred in, who's coming in, needs to buy a house, okay? Believe me, my kids are in private school. I know that admissions person, okay? And I get leads from them, okay? So you go to your church. Who knows what's going on in the church? Come on, guys, same thing. Clergy.
Secretary it is.
Secretary, pastor, minister, father, whatever you call him. He knows what's going on. People that are in that core group in admissions that are not admissions. What do you call it?
Registration.
Registration. But what's the other thing they have when they're trying to what?
Administration.
Administration. But also the people that are in there trying to grow. What? Membership. There you go. Get involved in the membership stuff. And here's the thing when you're doing this. If you do this the right way, where you're actually in there, not because you're a real estate agent, you're trying to get leads, people will see right through that. But if you're in there, you're genuinely trying to help. I go to my kids, some of their sports games, and I'll sit there and I'm sitting there and I see these parents all the time, but I don't know their names. So what if you just were the person that made an effort to, put together a little, a booklet. Here's their pictures and here's their names. When you're sitting there, you're looking at it, I always forget, and I forget, and you pass it around, and you're the person that puts it out there. What if you just did something simple like that, and you become the point of contact and the person that initiated all that? Just something simple like that, and all of a sudden, instead of sitting there like a bump on a log, now you've got these other people that are, that are sitting there. So again, you can just sit there and come through all this stuff where, you can use your time wisely. Okay, so when you're at church, you're obviously there for spiritual reasons, okay? You're there for social reasons, but why not open yourself up to business that would come your way? I'm not saying, again, if you go up there and raise your hand and tell everybody the first thing on your mouth that you're in real estate, every time they say it, they run the other way. But if you're there because of other reasons, they see you involved, that sends a whole different message. Does that make sense? And that's the type of people that people want to be involved with. Does that make sense to you, Eric? I'm sure you can figure out a way to apply that, right? Husbands group, same type of thing. And by the way, when you're doing this, you want to screen people, there's no sense marketing to somebody that's got a license or has got, one distance away from somebody else or 1 degree away from somebody else that is an agent. And that's why, you go through this process. But I always start from the top, who knows the most people, because here's the thing. I can go through and try to be friends with 450 people. I don't need to. All I need to know is who the top 10 are. I know who those top 10 are, and I'm going to find out what's going on in here. By the way, here's a prime principle for in real estate. Anybody here know what the Pareto principle is? Nobody? Okay.
Or do they just don't know by the name?
Okay, don't know by the name. Anybody know the 80-20 rule?
Yes.
Okay, that's called the Pareto principle. So 80% of your business is going to come from 20% of your activities. 80% of your leads are going to come from 20% of your database. I got 450 people in here. If I get 20% of that, which is 90, that's all I need. Now, the top 90 will lead me to not only 450, probably up to 900 of them. Okay, does that make sense? In the school, I just need to know the top 120. If I got 120 and I got 90 out of that, and I got 10 out of here, I got the right 10. I got human resources. I got the receptionist. The owner of the company. I'm golden. That's all I need. I don't need everybody else. It doesn't mean I don't want them, but I don't need them. Again, quality of your database versus the quantity. Does that make sense? Okay. By the way, you guys interact. Okay. I want this to be a great class. I want you guys to walk out of here with something that you can use. And by the way, when you're calling people that know you and you know them, the quality of your business goes up dramatically. You walk in with a relationship in hand. I met Yoni through his uncle. His uncle refers to me. Do you think I had Yoni wasn't a hard sell. His uncle like, you're using Dave and that's it. And we get in there. I don't have to come in there and do the dog and pony show. Hey, here's why you're going to use me and whatever. There was no conversation. What are you looking for? What do you want? Okay, let's go out and get it. That's it. We hit the ground running that way. And there's a mutual trust, that was built, from day one that we worked together, right? To this day, this very day. So that's, that's why I enjoy the business, because I'm around people that I enjoy being around. Life's too short. I just had a client that would just give my assistant a hard time. Just let the guy go. You have to look at it, and I lost X amount of commission, lost. But the time and effort and brain damage the guy was causing me was draining my focus from the other. He was 80% of my time and 20% of my, he was taken away from what should have been my focus on doing, my top 20% of my activities. He was a drain on me. He was 80% of my issues during the day. And that's why I just had to let him go. And that happens. And you can only do that when you've got a good referral business and you've got a pipeline going on. Okay? So that's how you get people in. Okay? Now you got people in. Now what do you do? Anybody have any ideas? What's that?
Be in contact.
Be in contact. Obviously, be in contact. What's the, how would you be in contact?
Birthdays, anniversaries,
Who said that? Beautiful. What else?
any holiday.
Any holiday. Okay? What else?
Newsletter.
Newsletter. Very good.
Be interested in them.
I'm sorry?
Be interested in them.
Be interested in them. That's the number one thing. That's why birthdays and anniversaries are so powerful. And that's really the key to personalize it. And that's why, the whole world has gone this, let me just do this mass, email or this mass marketing stuff. Let me send out recipes. Let me send out stuff to, whatever that has no use to most people. In fact, I apologize. I meant to actually bring some of the stuff that I've sent out over the year. What I sent out is 12 times a year. They talk about the 8x8 in here. So here's what I do. 12 times a year, once a month. I do a mailer with an insert, and my insert is nothing more. None of this has anything to do with real estate. There's 2 sentences in my mailer that have something to do with real estate. First paragraph. I've been doing this for years. First paragraph is, gosh, I can't believe it's January 2018 already. Here we are already at the beginning of the year. And then my next paragraph is, here's what the real estate market's going to do. Here's what's happening right now. There's X amount of homes on the market, X amount of sales, and here's a change from last year. So I usually do a little bit more vague. I don't want to make it too technical. Basically, I just let people know that we're in a very tight inventory market. There's normally 6 months of homes on the market. Right now we have less than 2. So it means that we have a very strong seller's market, and it looks like it's going to be that way through the end of the year. Third paragraph, once again, thanks for the opportunity to oh, that's the fourth one. The third paragraph is, I've enclosed 2 articles, which I hope you will enjoy. And I always have a front and back copy that I put in the envelope. Because if it's only about real estate and they're not interested in real estate, they're just going to take it and drop it in the trash. So, and it's different every year or every month. So, for example, on Mother's Day, the cover one is 101 Ways to Praise Your Child. And then on the back, there's something in there called A Mother's Love. In June, I'll send out Bill Gates' speech that he gave at a commencement. And on the back side, there'll be one by a speech on winning by Vince Lombardi. In Valentine's Day, there's a tongue-in-cheek Valentine's Day. It's a little humorous side, and then there's one on the flip side called Priceless Love. And I rotate those around every year. We're always looking for stuff off the internet or what have you to put this stuff out there. So that goes out 12 times a year. Every week, I do an email blast, and my email is nothing more than 4 inspirational quotes. Okay, and I try to make it timely. For that time of that week as well. So 4 inspirational quotes. At the top of it, it'll say, it comes off my email stationery. And the reason I send this out is at the top of it, it says, click here to search for properties. When somebody clicks on that and they sign into my website, I get a text. So every Friday I go fishing, okay? So when somebody clicks into that and they say, I'm looking for property or whatever, that's when I get, that's when I respond back, and that's what I'm doing with this. If I send something out about real estate, just list, just sold, all that, eventually people will opt out of that. So, and I get so much, everything I do is all about inspirational quotes and messages and whatever, because those are things I think that we can use in today's world of everything. You look at the news, everything's negative, everything's down. So I try to counteract that with this. I do a minimum of 4 calls a year. This goes to the 80%. And then the 20%, I do about 10 to 12 calls a year and visits. That's my top 20%. Okay, top 20% means that they will refer me or have referred me people. And I even crank that down even more. Because 20% of 600 people is 120. I can't possibly get to that many people in person. So I actually take the top 20% of that 20%, which is 4%, which is about right around 50 to 60 people. And those are the ones I concentrate most of my time on. Okay. Here's a simple rule of thumb. Anybody here want to share their goal for the year and how many homes they want to sell? Somebody? Anybody?
100.
100. Okay, it's a little ambitious for your first year. I like the way you think. Anybody else?
A dozen.
A dozen. Okay. David, so here's an easy formula. Okay. I'm going to go right over everybody's head. It's too simple. Get 12 people that know you, like you, and love you, and will refer you in person. Spend all your time and energy looking during the year. Go get a dozen deals. Okay. How's that for business plan? Love it. Love it. I know it's too simple. I know. I mean, everybody else has much to do different stuff, but that's all it takes. Now, here's the thing. They tell you there's 20%. I actually think it's more like I like to do the 20% of that 20. So let's figure out how many people you need in your database to do that. So anybody here, who's a math person in here? We got a calculator on them? Eric? So if you've got 12 people, that would be 20% of that. That would be 60. Is that right? No, yeah. 60. I'm sorry? 20% of 60. 12, right? Yeah. So you need at least 60 people in your database. I would actually double that. I would say if you had 100 people in your database, that's all you need, and you identify who those top 12 people are, that's going to get you your business. You don't need this big honking database. Okay? Now, you don't need such a big database, and you're doing this stuff, and it looks like it's pretty simple. By the way, all this stuff you can do out of eEdge. I don't use eEdge, but you can do all this out of eEdge. I just happen to have a CRM, a contact relationship management program that I've had since about 1990, okay, or 92, somewhere around that range. So I've just kept it. But you get one from Keller Williams and eEdge, and you can do the same stuff. It'll do this email blast. Now, I would not, personally, unless you've got something else to get going at the beginning, they have their own letters and all that stuff. I would personalize it, just like what Aaron was saying. Instead of making it generic, because people can tell when it's a generic deal. Do it personalized. Do something that, that's you. Whatever that is, that's going to be your sales pitch. For me, I like the inspirational stuff and putting that stuff out there, and people identify that. I get people all the time calling me. I had a guy call me up and said, "Hey, I'm in Florida. You don't know me, but you sold a house to somebody who moved out here." And he always shares the stuff that he gets from you. Would you mind putting me on your list? Sure. Why not? Chances of that guy ever buying a home from me are about 0. Okay. But it's just, I believe you put stuff out in the world, and it's going to come back to you, at least what you said. So back to where we were. So now if you only have 120 people, why do you need a contact management system? Okay, so if you have 120 people and you're going to contact them 4 times a year, okay, let's just forget about even the 10 times. That's 4. Let's just call it 500, 480 times a year. You got 500 in there. That's minimum calls. How are you going to keep track of that stuff? Okay, the only way you can do it is with some kind of a database management system. Okay, so my system, when I put it in, I have somebody, I take down their name, I take down their mailing address, obviously, their email, their contact phone numbers, and then I get their birthdays, spouse's birthday, wedding anniversary, and if they bought or sold a home from me, they bought or sold a home and or did both, and I get the kids' birthdays if the kids are 16 years or under, or basically if they're living at home. 17, 18, whatever. When they get 17 or 18, they're too cool to get birthday cards from me anymore. And by the way, I don't call them on their kids' birthdays unless the span. Sometimes you have a situation where husband, wife, and wedding anniversary, I have one that's all on the same day. Okay, so I'm not going to wait another 12 months to call them. So if they have a kid's birthday that's 3 months away, I will call on that birthday. Okay, because I don't like people going more than 3 months without getting a call from me. I space them out 4 months in advance. In an ideal world, you'd have each one of those 4 calls spaced out equally, but it doesn't work out that way. And the other times of the year that you call them, you always find something to say. This time of the year, it's easy. Happy New Year. The end of the year, same thing. Happy holidays. Just want to call them, wish you happy holidays. Very simple. By the way, when I call people on their birthdays, so a lot of people send birthday cards, which is nice. And my birthday card, there's no business card in there. There's not pre-printed in there with my phone number in there. It's the same card that I would send to my mom or any of my kids. Okay, so it doesn't look pre-printed. Otherwise, what's the point? Okay, like they had this thing years ago or a few years ago. What was that thing that those cards that go on? Send out. Forget that nonsense. Okay, personalize it. Handwritten, your handwriting. Handwrite the inside. Okay. The other thing that I do is if I know the date that they're born, and that includes the year, I use a program anybody can get to. It's free. It's on the internet. And I punch in the date, and it tells you all the things that happened on that date in history. And I mail that to them in the birthday card. Now, when I call them on their birthday, I sing to them on their birthday. I literally sing. I'm on the phone. It's one of the first things, I don't call anybody before 9:30 in the morning when it's their birthday in case you're sleeping in. I call them and sing to them happy birthday. Okay? People remember that stuff. And it's what you said, Aaron. I own that relationship. A lot of times people tell me, gosh, Dave, you're the only call I've got on my birthday. I haven't got a call from my parents, my siblings, my spouse, so, it just stands out. Have fun with it, and it just shows that you're just not some stuffed shirt. You're actually a person that really, you care about them, and you put yourself out there. On my A+ people, and that's my, my top 50 people. If I have one of these guys that's in an office and it's their birthday, I come in, I put a goofy hat on, I'm dressed just like this, okay? I come up with a birthday cake, and I come into the office, I go right to the receptionist, and in I go singing from the receptionist out to their office, wherever the case may be. And I've been in some of the, where there's a couple of layers of people you got to get through to get to that person and come in there. And, one of the things that somebody said to me one time was, gosh, don't you feel like you're making a fool of yourself? And it's like, you know what, when you think that way, you make it all about you instead of them. Because if you're thinking about them, you would never think about that. I mean, how many people are going to have kids? Okay, think about the goofy stuff that you do with your kids, okay? Because it's all about them, okay? And again, you put yourself out there and you have, I'm not coming in there with my business cards, passing them around, but people see that and that are around there. And then when I'm around and people are serving cake, my friend will absolutely introduce me. This is Dave, he's my realtor, and he brought this with came in here. And if somebody asks me for something, I will ask you. To me, it's all about the birthday person when I'm there. Somebody wants to give me a card or, wants to ask me something, I'll say, look, why don't you give me your name and number, let me call you. I'll call you tomorrow or whatever the next day or whatever the time may be, but not during the time I'm there. When I'm there, it's all about that person. Otherwise, people just believe that there's an ulterior motive, which there is, but you don't have to be obvious about it. Okay, but I still have fun with it, and it just shows that, you care. Think about it. If somebody came to your office doing that, how you would feel. Okay, nobody does that stuff. Okay, and again, it's going beyond. I'm just talking about now what you can do with your database. Now, what the CRM does is that when you punch all that stuff in, so the way that mine works, and a lot of them do, is that it will populate on that. So let's just say, Yoni, when's your birthday? August 9th. So what will happen is mine gives me a week's notice. So August 2nd pops on my calendar automatically. It's Yoni's birthday on August 9th. So I will move that, depending on what day in the week it is, to a minimum of 2 days before his birthday to get a card out, because I know it'll take 2 days to get in the mail. If I put it out in the morning, I want to make sure he might get it the next day, but I want to make sure that he doesn't get it late. I'd rather have him get it early. So it'll be on my schedule. It comes up as a to-do list. I write him a card. I move that from the 7th to the 9th as a phone call, and then on the 9th, it just pops up right in my schedule. It's his birthday. Tells me whose birthday it is. Tells me if it's somebody's kid, if it's a wedding anniversary, all that stuff, once you have that in, you don't have to think about it anymore. And that's why I believe in these CRMs. If you don't have one, you might as well just get out of the business, because that's the only way you're going to keep track of stuff. Somebody calls me up, I'm sorry, what's your name? I want to keep everybody involved in this class. Yvette.
Oh.
So Yvette, so if I was talking to Yvette, and Yvette said to me, hey, my son just graduated from Harvard, and blah blah blah, and she's all proud of this or whatever. Man, I'm making notes of that in my CRM. The next time I call her, believe me, it's in there. Okay, on my phone, my CRM goes into here. So when I look up somebody's contact, it has my last note that's in there about that person. And lets me know what we talked about, because that's the only way you can keep track of all this stuff. So that's what the E-Edge would help you do that as well. It's helping you facilitate your transaction or facilitate your relationship with that person. Does that make sense? Anybody have any questions on anything so far? Okay, and it's all about being creative. What can I do to enhance my relationship? There are people that give out pies for 4th of July or Thanksgiving, or there's people in here that give out Christmas trees. They send out vouchers for them, and somebody can go redeem them. They go to the Christmas tree lot. The Christmas tree lot, and then in turn tells them how many of those coupons were redeemed, and then they write them a check for it. So there's a lot of different things that you can do. I like impacting people on the most important days. And no matter what anybody tells me, I firmly believe everybody's favorite day of the year is their birthday. I am convinced of that. And there may be the oddball person that's not the case. But that's my belief. And I figure if I'm going to call them, why not call them on that date? And I want to be associated with that date. I want to either take them out to lunch on that day. I want to be at their office on that date if it's one of my top people. That to me is better than any listing appointment that you can go on. Does that make sense? Any questions, comments? Okay. Somebody must have a question about something. Welcome. Trying to think of what else we can talk about the 4 ways. So the same thing goes. Oh, by the way, so you meet somebody in your church group, your school, your husband's work, anywhere else you do. The first thing that when you get back to your office, like when I walk in, Yoni was talking about, write the person a thank you. Okay. And thank you notes, by the way, there's an art to them. It's just not, if you just write, hey, nice meeting you, blah, 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 sign off. Yeah, but it's a knee-jerk reaction. Versus, gosh, I really, here's what I gleaned out of our conversation. I'm talking to David. Gosh, David, thanks for your insight about, you're sharing about your kid. It really makes me think about, how I can take that home and transfer that to my own parenting skills. And, thank you for that. I really, I admire and appreciate, what you're doing, and you really brought value to my day. Okay, so so that is something that you're going to remember. Give them a compliment about something that you admire about them that you took away from that point. When I send somebody a birthday card, I'll write in there, and one of the things that I'll put in, or somebody passes away, God forbid, or animal passes away, I always write a sympathy card, whatever. But on their birthdays, which a really good friend of mine, one of the things I'll put in there is, I really appreciate our relationship over the years, and please know that our friendship is really one of my most treasured blessings that I have in my life. Okay, or something to that effect. And write these things, heartfelt, because nobody does that anymore. Everybody's just, text and knee-jerk stuff. Nobody hand writes and gets down and touches people. Yeah.
On the return address, does that come from your business address or your home address?
Good question. It depends. And that's a great question, because I have pre-printed labels here from the office. If it's somebody that's an A+ client, I am handwriting it from my home.
Okay.
The return address is a handwritten.
On the envelope.
That's right. Now, I happen to live in La Jolla, which is a little bit far from here. I'm in this office because I really like this office. I drive past 3 or 4 other Keller Williams offices to get here, and a number of other real estate offices. But I like it here. I've been around this business a long time. I was in Mission Valley for many years. I don't do that much business out here. Most of my business is, I'm all over the place now, but most of my business is really more along the coast. But I like it here, and So if I'm sending something, in general, I will use that return label. But if it's somebody really impactful, I'll handwrite it. And in fact, it's something I should do all the time.
I just started, and in order to differentiate them from their buddy Holly,
Right.
pal, that now I put a return address in here.
Do it from your home.
Okay.
Yeah, I would do it from your home. Yeah, you want it on their birthday and thank you notes.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
you
This
want
is
that
more
from their-
businessy.
Yeah, no, so the business letters, like my mailings, those obviously come from here,
Yeah.
okay? That totally for sure comes from
Birthday
here.
cards and more personal messages is from you at your
That's right.
personal.
And by the way, that's a great point, because here's the, because my business is, at this point, it's all referral. And you can appreciate this because you were referred to me by your uncle, is a very dear friend of mine that I've known for a long, long time. And whenever, his uncle's name is Jaime, so whenever Jaime and I did business together, I could have shown up in a pair of Levi's, and just a pullover shirt. I never did. With your friends, you cannot take the relationship for granted. So when you're there, just like what you said, Holly, when you're there, this is Dave, the business guy that's showing up your door. It's not Dave, your buddy. I love Jerry Maguire. I love that movie. Well, I learned so much about sales from that movie. I mean, he's all about, this is his only client, he's pouring himself into him, and I just love the message in that. And he talks about, hey, we got our friend's hat on, or do we have our, our agent's hat on? Because if we got our friend's hat on, let me lay it out to you. And that's, and that's something that I really, it's one of the best pieces of advice I ever got. I got that from my mentor. Never take your personal relationships for granted. Always show up, dressed. And I'm still old school. I believe, and I get this from my mentor as well. I believe that people still want women showing up dressed like ladies, okay? And they want guys showing up dressed like gentlemen. I believe that to my core, that they want you, you cannot be overdressed. Now, if I'm going in and I'm meeting a guy that's a blue collar guy and I'm dressed like this, first thing I do is I take off my jacket, and I loosen my tie, and I sit down because I want him to be comfortable with me. I don't want the way I'm dressed to be create any kind of a barrier, but I want him to know that I'm prepared. I take things seriously, and this is my standard. And here's what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to treat you the same way as I would treat anybody else, no matter who they are. The other thing is make life simple. If you've got to treat one guy one way and another one way, you drive yourself crazy. So just keep one standard. We will market a multi-million-dollar house the same way we market a $40,000 condo. Okay? We give everybody the same treatment. We don't put a dollar sign on based on the house. I had my biggest referral in this business, come from the same person that a year before that gave me my lowest referral to that point, dollar-wise, was a $40,000 condo out in San Francisco. And a year later, now this is going back in the mid-90s when the market had tanked, he gave me a $4 million home to sell, which in today's dollars is about 15, 16 million bucks for the sale. That same person gave me a referral for that one that gave me the one for the $40,000 condo. And it was because he saw how I was on top of that thing. And I'm in Mission Valley, and I'm driving down to that property. I'm not delegating, and I'm taking ownership of this this deal. And again, it's all about, it's all about the people in this business. It's not about this property. There are people in here who know more about real estate that, they've forgotten more about real estate than I'll ever know. Okay, I don't worry about knowing how many square feet in an acre and how many parcels and who knows what. I have no idea. On a contract, I have no idea on some of this stuff. I don't know everything that's in there. I know enough to know what I need to know. Like I said, this is a simple business. You don't have to be smart. What we're supposed to do is relate to people, be good at selling, which means listening to people, asking the right questions, knowing what to ask, how to interact with people, learning how to use nonverbal communication. We do this a lot. And if I'm talking to Chelsea, and I'll say, Chelsea, if I'm sitting at the the table with Chelsea said, tell me, tell me what's on your mind. I'm doing this like this, so I'm nodding my head so that she feels comfortable with me. There's a lot of subliminal stuff, and I'll do this, or I'll open up like this. If I was sitting there like David, I'm just going to pick on David. So he said, David's sitting there like this because he's comfortable, but if he's sitting like this at a meeting, if I'm sitting there and you're sitting across the table from me like this, I know that he's closed off to me by his body language. He's just saying, no way. And so then what I do is I'll take, some documents from me and I'll say, Dave, take a look at these. I get him to uncross his arms. I get him to open up a little bit. Okay. It's also a little tough when you're, part of selling, well, this is what, the reason I'm telling you all this is this is really the focus of it. You're going to meet a husband and wife, okay? So as a guy, if I spend too much time talking to my wife, I'm not going to go so great with the husband probably, okay? Chelsea goes in, she spends a lot of time talking to the husband, okay? And if it's Jacqueline's husband, you're like, that ain't going to happen, okay? So there's a lot of dynamics. And then you got to figure out who the decision maker is, okay? And a lot of times the decision maker is the quiet one. Not the one asking all the questions, harping. They're usually asking questions because they're nervous and they don't know what they want to do. Whereas the quiet ones already made a decision. They know what they want to do. So that's when you can get into a situation where you're referred and you come into that, a lot of those barriers come way down. So when I did a lot of expired listings, these people are not happy. They don't have any faith in the real estate industry because their home is on the market, didn't sell. For sell by owners, I know more than you. You're not going to tell me anything. What do I need you? I'm not going to pay X amount of dollars. Or I can do the same thing myself. Yeah, I know everything, and then so you get to learn how to deal with that type of a person. And that was probably the best thing that happened to me in this business was learning to talk to different types of people doing that. But at the end of the day, my hair would be a lot darker, and I'd have a lot more hair on my head if I had just done a lot of this stuff from the beginning. And that's why I like this class. Because it is simple. When I got into this business, and here's what this whole package says. Go home, write 50 people that you know, okay? And I got the first 10 banged out was my parents, my brothers, sisters, and next door neighbor and best friends. So there were 10 right there. Boom, done. And then you go down and you got the next level, your other friends that you got. So now you're down to 20. Then I took their parents. Okay, now I'm up to 30 and 35, and then so before I know it, I had 50 people like that were locked in, and then I just called them and then just sent them a thank you. So it's very easy to get 50 people. Now once you have those people, then you just call them and ask them, for their, who do you know? So if I'm talking to Candace, okay, and I'm having a nice conversation with Candace, and I say, Candace says, Candace, if you know anybody that need a real estate agent that you knew, and you want to refer somebody that you can trust, do you have anybody that you could recommend? Not trust is such a bad word, but you have somebody that you feel comfortable knowing that they would get taken care of. No, gosh, I'd like to be that person. What's it take to be that person for you? And then she would tell me, and I said, okay, fine. And we have a nice conversation at the end. It's like, Candace, who else do you know that I should know? Okay. And then from her, I go to the next person, so she refers me to Chris. Hey, Chris, I got your phone number, your name from Candace, and I'll tell Candace, you mind calling him, let him know I'm going to call him, so I'll call my blue. So I call him up, and I try to, I set up a face-to-face with him. I don't want to do anything over the phone. I want it face-to-face. If he's not willing to meet me face-to-face, I just blow him off. I'll try a couple of times, I'll be persistent about it, but if he's not willing, not my type of person. We'll go to the next one, okay? And then I'll call up Candace and say, hey, I just want to let you know, I did try to get hold of Chris, I got honestly, I just got blown off a couple of times. I get it, it's okay. Who else do you know that I should know? I really appreciate your time. And maybe I'll take her and that person out to lunch or whatever the case may be, or a couple of those people out together. I like doing things in groups instead of one-on-one. That's why client events are great. Instead of you going out to 30 or 40 people all over the place, they all come in one spot and then it's done. And then the other thing is you get the dynamics of those people mixing in other people, they become friends, and then you became, at least they became friends. And then they'll always remember that. Does that sound good? And, yeah. Again, I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Scott. So okay, you're the only guy without a name tag here, so I'm going to have to. You don't have a name tag. Where is it? Fredo.
Yeah.
Okay. So Scott, one of the things I said at the very beginning is that what's great about this business, and don't take this personal, I just said at the beginning, so it's not directed. You don't have to be smart, okay? That's what's great about this business. You have to do the right thing in the right way at the right time. Where was I going with this? We were talking about client events. Just totally lost track of where I was going.
Coming to you.
Them coming to you. I'm sorry? Group out to lunch, getting people to come together. It's funny, I just drew up, it's a senior moment, folks. It happens all the time. And by the way, if I was sitting with a client, I told them the same thing. Everybody wants to be Joe Professional. Just let your hair down. I was looking at you, Aaron, when I was thinking of it. I can't think of what it was that I was gonna say.
Another senior moment.
Another senior moment, exactly.
Saying that you were the connection between the two people becoming friends.
Yeah. So, and then you just want to figure out a way to, so anyway, I'll come back to it some other time. So here's the gist of it. If you can find a commonality, I'm just going to go into the next the next level. If you can find a commonality between you and somebody else, so if I just meet David off the street and we just start talking, so I'll do this thing about what they call fraud. That's the Keller Williams thing. I start talking about family. Tell me about what do you like to do for recreation? What do you do for occupation? And G, I forgot what G is, another senior moment. But anyway, you kind of get the gist of it. As we go down through that, I'll find out what his interests are, and then I'll just see if we have something that clicks. So here's the great thing about when you're involved in organizations, because when you're in a church, you're all there for the same reason. You're in a school, your kids are all the same priorities. You're in private school, or whatever the case may be. And then your husband's work, you've got a connection there with your husband. So if you can find some kind of a commonality with somebody, and then you can take this to the next level, by the way. It's something that I haven't done, that I've always thought about. I've never pulled the trigger on it. So one of the things, when you have a computer program, you can put information in there. Like I can pull up who all my past clients are. At the end of every year, I send out 200 boxes of David's cookies through Costco. And I can pull up that list instantly, because as soon as somebody, when I mark them in my database as a past client, I can just look under that field. It'll pull them all up with their addresses, and I can just send that off, and then out they go. The other thing you can do is, let's just say you had somebody that was interested in, let's just say, golf. Okay, so you see an article on something somewhere. Hey, gosh, Joe, I just saw this article on golf, and I know you love the golf. I thought you'd appreciate this, and I'll either email it to them or mail it to them, or whatever the case may be. Hey, I'm just thinking of you. And I use this all the time. Somebody pulls up my database. I'm going to call people 4 times a year, and they pull up, and just out of the blue. And I'm sorry, I don't know, Erwin. I'm sorry, Erwin. Okay, so Erwin. So I'll just, so let's say Erwin's name pops on my list. Erwin, I was just thinking about you today, and just wanted to give you a call and say hi. And I remember when we worked together, it was just, so much fun. It was so exciting to find your house, and how excited your kids were, and kind of go, and just go into that conversation with them. So you make it genuine, not like, Erwin, your name popped up on my list today, that's why I'm calling. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Okay, so again, here's about keeping it simple, trying to keep it real. You don't have to reinvent the wheel here from scratch. 2 years ago, my family and I went to the island of Oahu for vacation. Spent a week a week at the Grand Wailea and a week at the Yoni resort, which is the Yoni is considered the #1 family resort in North America. So when I was there and I was telling my little mastermind group that I was going, I told them I'm on vacation, but my eyes and ears are going to be open. Figuring out why is it, like at Nordstrom's, why is it that they can charge these prices and they're always sold out? What do they do? The rooms don't look that special. I mean, what do they do? So I'll tell you, here's something that happened within the first hour and a half that I was there, if not the first hour at the Yoni resort. We get there, my kids are excited to get there. We got there a little bit late because our plane that transfers us, wait a minute, let's see, Oahu, we were at the Grand Wailea, maybe that was in Maui. That's in Maui. I'm sorry? It's in Oahu also?
No, it's on Maui.
It's on Maui, that's right, because we had to take a plane from Maui to Oahu. Thank you. So our connecting flight was an hour and a half late getting in, which meant my kids' pool time got cut down. By the time we got there, they were already shutting down the pool. So I told my kids, let's go walk around, let's go see the grounds. The grounds are pretty incredible, let's go take a look. So of course, we're walking by, one of the first things my kids see is this shave ice stand. And it's like 5:30 or whatever it is. I said, look, let's just keep walking. We'll come back and we'll get one on the way back. So we come back at 6 o'clock. Guess what time they close the shave ice stand? 6 o'clock, okay? My moms come in handy. Moms know this stuff. So I wasn't real popular with my kids at the time, so I So I run around the corner, this little shack. Not shack, it's a nice little booth they have there. And I said, gosh, I promised my kids they'd give me shave ice, and, we were here a half an hour ago, and I promised them to come back. And is there any way you guys could, make them one? And she goes, oh, of course. What do they want? So I told them, and then, she gives them each one. And then and by the way, this is a 17-year-old person, I'm guessing, 17, 18, young person. And I said, what do I owe you? How much are they? And she goes, consider this a magic moment between us. I will never, ever forget that. $3.50 for each one of those things. And I remember that to this day. I don't remember the bill. I don't remember all the other charges. I remember that. And when I got back, I thought, I'm going to figure out a way to incorporate that saying into my business. And the reason I tell you as a 16, 17-year-old person, because she was obviously trained to say that, and trained very well. But think about that. At the Grand Wailea, I'm spending, I don't know how many, whatever it was, a crazy amount per night there. I had to pay to have my rental car parked there, which, on top of it was $25 a day for that.
And they sell your information.
They probably saw my information. But every day, it's 85 degrees, 88 degrees every day. Pull my car up, and there's 4 water bottles ice cold in the car when they pull it up. You think I worried about the valet parking fee at that point? So it made me think, when you're out showing property, you have a little container of stuff. It was just a little, and on the bottles it said Grand Wailea on there. So if you're doing your own thing, you put Scott's real estate or compliments of Scott or whatever the case may be, just something personalized. It just shows that you're thinking about them. Hey, I don't want you running out of energy, and it's I want you to be taken care of. And again, you're just laying this foundation that that it's personalized. Does that make sense? So I'm sorry.
Good.
It's good. So every time I go somewhere, if I walk into someplace that's known for customer service, my eyes and ears are wide open. I'm looking to see what are they doing that makes us work, and then how can I take that and build that into my system. Here's something else. Everybody always talks about, and this is going back to what Aaron said, make it personal. So everybody, when you close a transaction, people they do these things with gift baskets. Now, maybe it's just me. To me, a gift basket is about the same as giving me a fruitcake over Christmas. Okay, it had about the same impact. I couldn't think of anything. You're not important enough for me to figure out what's personalized for you. So here's just something. Okay, now maybe a woman like these, maybe it's just a guy talking. I'm a practical person. I like things that I can use. I don't like things just for the sake of getting this stuff. So here, here's ways that you can. And I don't give. By the way, I don't give closing gifts. As a general rule, but here's things that come, that you can do. And again, I'm going to shift this a little bit because we're talking about relationships, because that's really what this whole database thing is all about at the end of the day. About 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, I sold a home to one of my closest friends in University City. And at the time, he had a little boy that I'm going to say was probably about 3 years old. And the house I sold him had a really big backyard, and at the very corner of the backyard, there was a little playhouse back there. So while the parents were looking at the house, I distracted the little boy. His name was James. But, I told the parents, Greg and Mary, go look at the house. I'll take care of James. That way you guys can concentrate. He's at that age where they want to run and touch everything, flush up your toilet, whatever. And the parents are just locked in on that instead of looking at the house. So James and I go out in the backyard. He sees his playhouse. He makes a beeline to it. He finds a Tonka toy, Tonka truck in there, and he starts playing with it the whole time we're there. Okay. Long story short, they end up buying the house. Come, meet him at the house, hand them the keys. Okay, do the handoff. Again, it's something, a lot of people just say the keys will get the front desk. Screw that. I'm going out there, I'm meeting you, I'm handing you the keys to the property. Okay, we go out to the house. Now I know, I didn't have any kids at the time, okay, but I know what that kid is going to do as soon as we go to the house. Any of us knows. He's going to make a beeline for that playhouse, and he's going to get there, and it's going to be empty. Sure enough, he makes a beeline of the house, or the playhouse. He goes back there, and he finds a big box like this, gift wrap with a bow on it. And I've got his name on the top, James. Now, of course, James can't read, but it's up there. He goes back there and he tells Mom and Dad, there's a present back there and it's for me. I just know it's for me. I'm like, how do you know it's for you? I just know it's for me. It's gift wrap. So okay, James, let's go back there and see what you found. Oh, yeah, no, it's got your name on it. How did you know that? He opens up this box, and it was a big Tonka truck that I had bought him, probably spent 20, 25 bucks on it. That was probably one of the best investments I have ever made in this business, okay? And it wasn't cheesy. Anybody that has kids knows that when somebody does something for your kids, you will never, ever forget it, ever, okay? And it was something that I paid attention. I knew it was something that he wanted, and I locked into that. And I didn't have to do it for him. The guy was one of my closest friends. His wife, who I met because she married him, I didn't know her from before. I got more business from her than you could, shake a stick at. She was a school teacher, an elementary school teacher, so she told everybody in the school. And of course, especially the women, oh my God, this guy did, blah, blah, blah. Because it just showed that I cared. That's what it showed. When I come into somebody's office with a birthday cake, it just shows I care. If I call you on your special day, it's because I care. I hear something, whether it's good, bad, happen to you, I'm calling you, it's because I care. And you want that to come across to people. There's a lot of little things that you can do like that. I sell a home in Carmel Valley. And what do you see in Carmel Valley every summer in the evening? Hot air balloons, okay? So at that time, I used to work for Remax. Remax used to get these half-price coupons for hot air balloons. They're expensive, so even at that time, it was 150 bucks a person. I don't know what it costs now. I haven't done it in a while. But so we used to get it for 75 bucks. So I used to sell somebody a home out there, send out a hot air balloon. Guess what they thought about every single time they see a balloon go up in the air after they've done it? Yeah, they think about me. So, and every single night for the rest of their life that they're out there. So I try to correlate the things that are great in somebody's life with me. If it's their birthday, I want them to think, Dave's going to call me. He's been calling me for years. I know he's going to call me. He's going to show up. He's going to do something different. I'll show up at their office and just, hand them a little gift, whatever it is. But something they're interested into, not a fruit cake, not a basket, something that they're really interested. They're into golf. I'll get them, maybe a golf simulator thing, or I don't golf, so I don't know that much about it. But I'll find somebody that knows, or I'll ask around. Today, one of the great things about Facebook is you can go in there and you can find people's interests. So before I go to meet somebody, so if I'm going out to meet Candace, I'm going to Facebook her, or my assistant's going to do it, and she's going to find out what you're into. And before I show up, when I go into somebody's house, now everybody wants to go into somebody's house and look at, oh, you're into that, I'm into this. And that stuff's cheesy. Just look at it, register it, and remember it, and save it for the appropriate time. Okay? Because when you're in the house, you want to be talking about the house. In fact, a lot of times when I'm going to somebody's house and they're listening, I'll tell them, why don't you sit in the kitchen? Let me go around the house, because if I don't, I'll get the engineer husband that's like, I use a 16 penny nail here, and then I put a 20 penny nail there, and then I have, X light bulb in there, that only draws so many watts, and it's like, what does that have to do with the value of this house? Okay, or the wife will say, well, this is where I raised my, 3 kids, and then she goes into this whole history, and I'm just sitting there like, oh gosh, But sometimes you just have to let people, vent at that, but you want to keep them on topic of what you're doing. So again, register that stuff in your head. And again, that goes back to having the database, because you can put all that information in there of what they're, what they're into. I don't compare myself to other people in the office about who's doing this, because there are people that are a lot of people that are selling a lot more homes than me. And they're working 60 hours a week. I'm working less than 40 hours a week, taking weekends off, and I'm enjoying my time with my family. Every summer we take a 2-week vacation. We take a week off in the wintertime. I'm there for all my kids' events. I've never missed any of my kids' games that they're into. So, and that's the other thing, make sure when you're writing your goals that they're your goals. They're not what somebody else's goals are. Don't sell yourself to the devil. Okay, because you'll get, now those of us who are a little older know what that means. But when you're younger, you'll just do anything and work with anybody, and that's the biggest mistake that you can make. Because there are people that will give you energy, and there's people that will drain your energy. And if you're doing this, you're around people that will give you energy, and you'll stay enthused about this business. Anybody have any questions? I don't like to talk this much. I'm usually more if I ask you questions. About anything.
Tons of questions.
Go ahead.
Other people, they're recording.
Ask about anything in the business. Doesn't have to be, yes.
Last year, how many transactions you closed last year?
Last year, I think I did somewhere in the mid-20s. Last year was kind of a slow year for me. I normally average about 35 deals a year. My best year in the business was almost, I had a partner at the time, but without a partner, my best year in the business was probably 44 transactions. And that's just me and one assistant. I'm not a team, and just me and the assistant that works about 30 hours a week.
How about your first year?
First year in the business, I think I sold my first year, and then I'm going to qualify that because I started the business in July. From July through December, I sold 1 home. Okay, the second year, I think I sold 5 or 6 homes, and the year after that, I was in double digits already. And then I never looked back.
Use a TC.
If you don't have an assistant, I would use one. My assistant does TC work. TC is a transaction coordinator. Again, we're in the sales business. The best thing you can do when you get a deal, give it to the transaction coordinator. Don't get sucked into it. And the reason is 2 things. First of all, the paperwork in this business has gotten crazy. I don't know how to do a green sheet, this whole thing, green sheet, whatever. It's all Chinese to me. I have no idea what that's all about. The second thing is that the way to get burned down in this business is to get sucked into the drama of a transaction. Okay, and if you're not involved in all the paperwork and all that, better for you. Now, I will meet with the client in person, the seller, and go through the disclosures with them. That's another way just to spend time with them face to face, reinforce the relationship. I don't run from that. I actually run to that. Any opportunity that I can be to be in front of somebody else. And again, it's just every time I'm in front of them, gosh, hey, you don't have to bring this out to me. You could have done this for me. Well, gosh, Joe, I want to, this stuff's important. I want to make sure that, you hired me to make sure that we're doing this thing right. And, by the way, Joe, I know that since, we're in the middle of a transaction, you're thinking about real estate nonstop. Who else do you know that's looking to buy or sell a home? Because when he's involved in a transaction, guess what? He's telling all his friends what he's doing. Okay, so he knows who else is thinking about it. So that's the main reason I'm there. Who else do you know? Because the best leads are going to come from the people that are your current clients.
Some of the longest pre-listing, say, meetings that you've had with clients, because I've heard some might take a lot of time. Do you set any stage for how long?
For a listing appointment?
Yeah.
So, that's a great question. So before I go out, I always ask, I have a series of questions that I ask, and I didn't make this up, it comes from Mike Fair, very famous real estate trainer from when I was back starting out, and still around now, and it's great stuff, and he asks a series of questions. Based on those questions, you'll get an idea of how long it's going to be. The other thing is that when you're in sales, there are basically 4 different personality types. You guys have all done the DISC thing. So you'll figure out where they are in the DISC. So if it's somebody that's that's a high C, very analytical engineer, guess what? Get a pre-listing packet out to them before you show up. Otherwise, you're going to be going through every single thing while you're there, and you'll be there forever, and then they still won't make a decision. So if you can get things out to them first, if you're out there with a person that's a high D, like I'm not a high D, but like a middle D, and and it's like, just give me the facts. I don't want to need the whole story and all this. Otherwise, I'll just tune out. When you're coming in and selling me something, get to the point. What do I need to know? Whatever, and then let's just move on. And those are things that come with time. And when you're asking this pre-listing stuff, you will gauge, who am I dealing with? Now, here's the tricky part. What if the husband and wife, one's a D, one's an S, or one's a C and one's a D? Let's make it extreme. One's going to take a lot of time, and the D is going to be, hey, I'm done. I already know what I'm going to do. What do? Go for the decision maker. Yeah, and you got to go there and believe me, being, that mid D, when I'm sitting there with a C, it's like taking my fingernails to this and just doing this. But that's what you got to do. And you know what? There's no better use of your time than around a listing appointment. If I'm sitting there and the thing is, and here's my rule of thumb on a listing appointment. The longer you're there, the less powerful you become. You shouldn't be there. I mean, it doesn't take, you should be able to pitch yourself within the first 15 to 20 minutes that you're there, especially if you're referred. If you're on a competitive appointment, maybe it takes you 20 minutes. But if you're there longer than that, chances are you're doing too much talking and you're starting to oversell yourself. And then that's when people see you as being pushy. So before I show up, I always ask, like I say, Scott, tell me, what are you looking for in an agent? What's important for you? What's your biggest concerns about being in a transaction? What does an ideal scenario for you look like? And then I'll gear my whole presentation to that. If he never brings up commission or whatever, why should I? If he doesn't care about my marketing package, like Dave, I trust you. I just need to know, hey, what's my house worth? How, what are you going to do to sell it? And how long is it going to take to get on the market? By the way, what are you going to do to sell it? He just needs to know the basics. Lock box, I have an open house, and why would you do that? And, all those sorts of things. Yes.
Are you still using scripts?
Yes.
You do?
Yeah, they're all in here now. I started this business using scripts, and anybody that says that they sound like a salesperson is because you haven't internalized them. If you're not using a script, you're an idiot. I don't know if I can make that any blunter than that. When I used to go on an appointment and I didn't get it, I would always come back and wonder, and if I got stumped, like one time I was on an expired listing. The guy says to me, he says, Dave, where were you when my home was listed? Now, look at the guy, like 6,000 homes on the market. You want me to look at every single home? I mean, where's that coming from? And I didn't know what to say. And then when I got back to my office, I wrote 3 answers to that question, which I did. And anytime I got an objection like that, I would go back and figure out how I would do it. So the next time that came up, so what I did was I said, the guy said, well, I never saw you. I said, that's true. You know why? The reason you never saw me is because you didn't hire me. I spend all my time and energy working on the listings that I have that people have hired me to sell. Do you want an agent that's out there looking at everybody else's house, or do you want them focused on your home? Which one do you want? You want, and again, I'm doing this nonverbal thing. You want somebody that's going to be focused on your home, right? Great. Let's do the right thing. Let's sign contracts. I can help you get what you want, the time you want. Won't that be great? Right out of Mike Ferry. Okay. 30 years ago. Still remember that. Okay. So and again, it's a lot softer when I'm in person. It's not so hard nosed, and I'm doing the smile. And, let's go ahead and sign the contract, sign the agreement, depending on who I'm talking to. If it's a high C, they don't like to be pushing anything. They need to know there's a way out. They're the ones that like the money back guarantee. If you don't like me, you can cancel it any time. The high D, he wants a guy that's going to go in there and take charge. Hey, sign the contract so I can help you get what you want the time you want. That'd be great. And those listing appointments, you should be in and out of there within a half an hour, including just shooting full. Okay, because that's all they want. So again, a good question to whoever asked that.
On the back of that one, actually, just for a buyer, and you're getting them into the office to get them signed up before
Right.
you go take them out.
Right.
In your experience, have you found people that might really take a long time and want to go through so much speed like a
They
real
are, and so that's a good question, Erin. And so what you have to do with any client that you have is you want to set the expectation. Okay, so there's only, we're in it right now. Joe's been in the business for a while now, enough to know that we're in a very tight inventory market right now. There's very little inventory. So what does that mean? There's more buyers in the market than sellers. So when you see a home that you like, what do you think that means, Erin? And I'll ask them to give me the answer. You got to make an answer. You got to make a decision on the spot. Okay. And I find that most people are buying a home within the first 3 or 4 homes that I show them. Okay. And so you set that expectation. Get that idea of the house that we're driving all over the place. That ain't happening. Okay. And again, that you set the expectation for the seller also. I'm going to price it at X. Well, if you do that, here's what you can anticipate.
So if you're dealing with a buyer then who you feel is like just going to take a lot of work here,
I refer them to Joe.
maybe you wouldn't even sign them on.
I wouldn't even sign them on. I'm serious. I'd refer him to another agent in the office.
Yeah. Yeah.
He doesn't have any more hair to lose, so he can afford it. I still got a little.
Every fear that we can, can't you?
No, but all kidding aside, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm not trying to be flippant. I wouldn't blow them off. Refer them to somebody. Why blow them off? Refer them to somebody that's willing to take them on and get a fee out of it. Don't just now if somebody's referred to you, it's a little bit different, and you got to make a business decision. Okay, that becomes a little trickier, but you have to see how realistic they are. I have one client that's been looking forever, but you know what? I've sold a ton of property for her. The thing is, she'll buy a house, and literally this has happened. 2 weeks later, she'll call me back and say, Dave, I don't like my house, I want to sell it. And I've sold it again. So in 2 months, I got 2 commissions. I like that. But I got to pay the price because it takes her so long to find something else. Okay, so you kind of have to gauge it. Today, what's nice is I rarely ever, and I don't think I'm unusual, I rarely ever put somebody in my car and drive them down. Today, people have access to all this stuff on the web, and they drive by themselves. And then they'll call you and say, hey, I'm interested in this house, and we'll meet you out, especially in a market like this that moves so fast. By the time they wait for our schedule to coordinate and get out there, it could be 48 hours, the house is gone. So, you don't have to push somebody to get out to a property today. That's a great thing about this market. You got to get out there. Okay. Good question. Yes.
Do you get all your clients, buyers, sign a BRE?
I don't. I should. And there's no good reason. I actually, most of my business is listings. I would say it's probably 70-30 the last couple of years. Historically, it's been 50-50 almost every year. You look at it, and it's not like I go planning for it. It just happens, which is fine because when you're working a buyer, down the road, they turn into a listing. But that's a good question. It is a good practice, by the way, what he's referring to as a buyer broker agreement. When you have somebody where if they buy a home, they're going to owe you a commission. They're locked into it just like a listing. So it's a good idea. The thing is, even if they don't sign it, if they don't sign it, then it should send a red flag to you. Why are they not signing this thing? And to me, that's, when you bring them to the office, that's one level. If they'll come into the office, you've got something serious. They'll sign that, they've got something serious. If they refuse to do either one of those, I would really question whether or not you're going to work with that person. It's a good question. Anything else? Anybody else? Got another 10 minutes here for Q&A. I mean, about anything in this. Yes.
So if I understand correctly, you're saying that if you have a buyer, you don't need to take them into your car and then
I didn't say you don't
you
need
just tell
to.
them like, okay, let's meet there.
In this market, I find that most people would rather meet you. And it's not like, there's 15 homes on the market where you're going to drive from one to the other. Usually there's going to be a couple of homes that are available. And I can't remember the last one I actually put a buyer in my car. I'll meet them somewhere and then they'll follow me to the next one. I mean, I could literally do this business right now on a moped. It's the market has changed. Now when it becomes more of a buyer's market, then it'd be a different deal. But today, one of the great changes that's happened in this business, when I first got in the business, there was no computers. Okay, everything was on an MLS book that came out every 2 weeks. Okay, and a hot sheet that came out in between. So the only people that knew what was happening was real estate agents. Today, every buyer knows what's on the market. Sometimes they know what's on the market before their own agent does. I have a lot of my, for example, Erwin, if you were one of my buyers, and you said, I'm looking for a home in Carmel Valley, I want at least 3 bedrooms, 2,000 square feet, I want to be in this price range, I set you up on a realtor search, okay, through the MLS. You're going to get notified right away. Now, I don't do that I don't copy myself for all my clients. Otherwise, I just get dinged all the time with all these emails. And I don't really need to know everything they're looking at. I only need to know the ones that they're interested in. So you're going to know about something that you like before I do. Okay, now I'm going to make it a point that I'm going to touch base with you, depending on how hot of a client you are, at least once a week, if not twice a week. Okay, if you're a real hot buyer that needs to buy something, I'm going to be in touch with you, every couple of days. Hey, have you seen anything or whatever? And there are ways that I can go in the MLS and I can see what's come up and, what have you. If you're that hot of a buyer, chances are I'd probably be getting, copied on those emails anyway. But the bottom line is more times than not, the buyer contacts me, hey, Dave, I saw this when it came up. They think I'm sending it to them directly. It's coming from the MLS, feed. And that's one of the great things that's happened in this business. People are so worried about the internet replacing us. I've been hearing this for years. The more information people get, the more confusing it becomes for them. One of the things that I hear, one of my favorite guys that I listen to, a guy by the name of Brian Buffini, says is that we're drowning in information and starving for wisdom. Okay, there's so much information being pumped at us, and when I was growing up, if you heard something on the news, you just assumed it was 100% true. I heard something on the news now, I assume that it's probably not true. I mean, there's probably somebody's spin. You get the same piece of information and you look on MSNBC and then you go to Fox, and there's the same information that's being spun in the exact opposite way. So today, most people don't, you just don't believe what's out there, and in many things. So that's why Amazon is so great. You want there's all the reviews of these items.
Yes. The realtor.com app, I really like that for open houses, right?
Right.
As soon as you're there, you just link it to them right there, and then they search, and every time they search, your name is right there for them.
That's right. And KW has the same thing. Keller Williams is the same type of an app that you can do that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. The realtor.com.
I don't know about the realtor.com one. I'm not that into all these little bells and whistles. I'm still into all this other stuff. And where it's
Keller Williams one,
yeah. So the Keller Williams one I'm into, but the one thing that I really want you guys to leave with on this is that this is a people business. And if you can take all that technology stuff out, other than just keeping track of when to call, who to call, and what to talk about. That's all you need in your database, okay? And get rid of all the other shiny objects that are out there. You're gonna be way ahead of the competition. Everybody else is trying to figure out how to get Facebook, LinkedIn, all that stuff. Screw it. Go here where you see people face to face. Brian Buffini was a guy. Anybody here heard of Brian Buffini? So Brian Buffini used to work in the real estate office that I was in here in San Diego. So I firsthand saw how Brian Buffini did business. Brian Buffini was doing 80 deals a year, okay, on 320 people in the database. Okay, do the math, okay? How did he do it? 300 of those 320 people were in his church. He saw them every single Sunday. He got involved in his church. He was involved in on every level that you could think of. And Brian's a religious guy. He wasn't doing it just because of real estate, but he's a very likable guy, and people saw that he's a real genuine guy. He's a lot of fun to be around. And that's how he did that many transactions out of that group. So you don't need 1,000 people. You don't need 2,000 people. He was in front of them all the time. That's why I say it's not a matter of just being involved in the church or being just showing up. You got to be involved in it on a hands-on basis. PTA, you're into running clubs, motorcycle clubs, bowling clubs, whatever. Go out there and believe it or not. I know it sounds crazy, but it doesn't have. This business shouldn't be about work where people think it's got to be painful. I believe that if I'm not having fun, then I'm doing it wrong. Because when I'm not having fun and I'm with, but I pay attention to who I'm with. I take this 80-20 rule, and if I'm going to go out, I want to go skiing for a day, I want to go surfing for a day, or I want to go do whatever for a day, and I want to do it with somebody, I want to pick one of those, okay? And the reason is because chances are that's a person I enjoy being around the most anyway. That's the reason to send referrals, because I have a really good relationship with them. Why not spend that time with them? I'm working, I'm socializing, if I'm doing something, exercising, I'm getting 3 rings of my life done in one shot.
You put that in your notes and your CRM.
I'm sorry?
That person that you went surfing with.
Oh, absolutely. I have a guy that until he moved to La Cañada 15 plus years ago, I was surfing almost every morning we would surf. I was surfing almost every morning with this one guy who would do it twice a week. 6 o'clock in the morning, 5:30 in the morning. He was an attorney here in town. That guy, over the course of 2 years, probably sent me about $130,000 in commissions. Okay? And I'm out there surfing with the guy. By the time I'm done, I get back to my office at, so my office at 8:30 in the morning. That was the best hour of my day, just from hanging out with him. I didn't have to put it in, you remember it, but I put it in my schedule. I had my schedule blocked out. We would go every Tuesday and Thursday, and I put it in. I had other guys that wouldn't see him. And I would do that. I used to rent and before, my kids are young right now, so before my kids were around, I used to take people on I like to go sailing, so I used to load up, I charter a 50-foot sailboat, and I'd load up, 12 to 14 people on there for the afternoon or the day, and we went out and spent time in this intimate environment, just having fun, just me and them. And, and they all, looked at me and said, gosh, Dave, this is great. What a great way to see San Diego. We'd stay on, the lights, the night would go down, we get the evening lights on the bay, which is spectacular. We dock up at Coronado and Pioli's, take everybody in for a drink. Then we come back out and take them back, and then, and then unload the boat. And they go, gosh, that was great. When do I get to do that again? And then you kind of just look at it and say, well, you know what it takes to get back on it again? That's a lot of matter. So you kind of have, you have fun with it. And I'm serious though. You sent me some business, but you know what? It's gotta keep going. There are a lot of other people that want to do this stuff. So, my brother was my partner at one time, and you can ask him. He'll tell you point blank when he was working with it. He'd see me screwing around on the weekends, and he'd say, "Gosh, you just screw around the whole weekend, whatever." But he said, "Sure enough, you come in on Monday and you start writing deals on the board because of doing that, building relationships." I'll leave you guys with one last little story here. Years ago, I had a client of mine. I'll leave this up. I had a client of mine that kept bugging me to go to the desert with him, go out to the river. So, and I kept telling him, gosh, I'm kind of busy, and it was in the springtime. I was kind of busy. I don't know if I could, really take the time off. Oh, Dave, come on, we'd really love to have you come out. So anyway, I ended up going out. I was there for 3 days. I don't remember what day of the week it was, but anyway, I was there for 3 days with this guy and his wife and a few other friends. From those 3 days, by the end of that year, which was 9 months later, he had referred 3 other people to me that had closed escrows. Okay? Tell me that wasn't a productive 3 days. I had fun. And the guy, and here's the thing, the guy's sending me referrals. And every time I call the guy, he's saying, Dave, I want you to know how flattered we were that you came out and joined us because I know how busy you are. I'm thinking of this guy like, you're freaking kidding me? I'm doing this every year with you from now. I'm calling you, this is a payback, from doing this. But this is how it looked from their eyes because I was so appreciative of when I was out there. I was present with them. I wasn't out there checking my, there were no smartphones at the time. But even if there was, I wouldn't have been sitting there looking at my phone. By the way, when I go on vacation for 2 weeks, I'm gone. I'm off the grid. I'm done. In fact, I hate taking my phone with me because sometimes it comes in handy as a, as a camera, and it also comes in handy as a GPS. So that part that I don't like is I got to, carry it around. But for the most part, I am unplugged. I am gone. There's my assistant. There's a backup agent, and I'm gone. There's nothing I'm going to do, from somewhere, halfway off. I'm not thinking about it. It's the same thing I told clients when they want to, they want to call me at 7 o'clock at night. So look, you're paying me to help you with the biggest financial investment that you're ever going to make or sell, and you're calling me when my brain is fried. I can't give you my best end, So let's talk about it during the day, which is true, which is absolutely true. I rarely give out my cell phone number. My business number is on my card, but it's not it's on my mobile phone. My home phone number has never been on my business card. Because people aren't going to get my best. Now, if I'm involved in a transaction or negotiating, I got to get a hold of somebody, that's a different story. Okay, we'll be down to the nitty gritty, but to start something and get involved in something heavy duty, I have found over the years that whatever major problem there is, when you wake up the next morning, the problem is usually not that major, and there's probably a 90% chance that it's been resolved by the time that you wake up. Again, going back to what I was saying, you don't have to be smart in this business. Just assume people are just as smart as or smarter than you are, and they'll figure it out. When somebody wants to list their home, I show them the comps, and I try to get them to pick the price. I have in my head, I know, this is what I do for a living. I look at property all day long, but they've got to own that price because if it sits on the market, I don't want them to come back to me and say, well, you picked this price. No, I didn't pick it. You picked it. I told you here's what's going to happen, and showed you all the the comps, and based on everything else I told you, this is what you said you wanted to do. And and I'll put that in writing to them in an email, and I'll follow up so that they have that. So nobody comes back and conveniently forgets what I told them. I get to take ownership on that. So we're down about 2 minutes. Anybody else have any last questions at all? Or?
That was really interesting what we were saying about the phone number thing. So at the beginning of the career, when I'm sort of indoctrinated with my church and that kind of thing,
Right.
what would you suggest about changing that up to have a professional number where you're going to answer between sort of 9 and 5?
So that's a good question. So there's some younger people in here. So back in the early 90s, I think is when I got a cell phone, or maybe it was maybe that was 1989, saying 1990. They were a prick. Gosh, about $10 a minute or whatever it was. It was crazy back then. And just to give you an idea how small San Diego was at the time. So my phone number for the last 30 years has been, now, that's been my phone number. Okay? Now, this is a 619 number. Back then, there was only one area code in San Diego. So I knew I had to get a cell phone. And I called up whoever it was way before Verizon and AirTouch and whoever was way back in the day. And I called up and I said, let me try to get a number that somebody can remember. I knew it wanted to be Dave. So I called up and I get this person answering the phone. And she said, we have a new prefix coming out. What's your name? So I said, my name is Dave Hastings. She says, Dave Hastings? I said, yeah. She goes, I forgot what her name was, but anyway, she goes, you sold me and my husband our house. Now, this was back San Diego was a small town. I get her on the phone. She's telling me we got this prefix from 987. And, and I want a date at the end. If you can wait 2 weeks, I'll put you, I'll make sure you get that number. So I got this number. Now, what I did with this number, because it was so expensive at the time, is I would call forward this to now at the time I was single, so I would forward this to my office, and then I would forward this to my home when I'm at home. Today, this phone number is on permanent call forwarding to the office. Okay, so now I have been in about 8 or 9 let's see. I've actually only been in 4 different locations since I've been in real estate. This phone number has stayed with me all the time. I just go into my account, I forward this to whatever number I have it forwarded to my direct line on my desk, and that number comes right to me. I've had the same number. My website is 987dave.com. My email is dave@987dave.com. Make it easy for people to do business with you. Okay? Make it simple. Come up with something, home or anything other than sold or something that just sounds wacky. Just come up with with something that's catchy that people remember. People for 30 years, they never forgot my phone number. When I sign off on a conversation, hey, gosh, it's always great to hear from you. I look forward to you. It's always nice to hear your voice. Call me anytime. Just call and say hi. It'd be great to hear from you. 619-987-DAVE. I sign off on that on every call that I do, except when I'm calling another agent. Okay, but that's what I've done with with my phone number. Okay, now it's just on permanent. Like I said, on permanent call forwarding. This phone number is a different number than that one. This number I don't give out unless I'm involved in a special circumstance.
So that phone would be more like your personal family, etc.
Yeah, my family will call me on this one, or if I'm involved in a transaction, I'll give somebody this one. Or, I give it to somebody. I'm not going to say I never give it out, but I'll give it to somebody that I know isn't going to abuse it.
Right.
They're not going to call me up at 9 o'clock at night, or or something and expect me to talk to them. And if they do, thank goodness for caller ID. If I don't recognize the number, I don't pick it up. In fact, speaking of that, a lot of the times I get phone calls. Even on the office, you get caller ID. I will let the call go into voicemail. I will let them leave me a message, and that way, when I call back, I'm prepared. Because I hate being caught off guard on a question. Dave, what's going on with my file? This and that. I have no idea. I got to check with so and so or whatever, which is fine. But that way, when I call back, I've got that information, on hand, and so don't feel like you have to jump on the call. And I always, by the way, with caller ID, I know who's calling me. It tells me who's calling me. I always answer the phone the same way. Good morning, this is Dave. How can I help you? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever the case may be. Even though unless it's my wife calling or one of my kids, but I will always answer the phone that way, just consistently, just so that they don't think that I'm screening my phone calls. Does that make sense? That was a good question. Anybody else? Any last things, comments? And yes.
You could get a second phone number on your same phone if you use a Google phone number.
Okay.
You have to look it up, but you can get a Google phone number, and that will forward it to without giving out your real phone number.
Okay. That's good to know. So thank you guys. Thank you very much. I hope this was. I hope you see that this business can be fun. Just find something that you enjoy. Go out and socialize with the people that enjoy the same things that you enjoy, and the business will come. It's that simple. It's not complicated. Okay? Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good luck. And by the way, in the office, if anybody ever has any questions or you want to run something by me or want to see the materials I have, I'm an open book.
Who else are you in the office? Where are you?
I am, let's see, who is near me? I am the door right before Tanya Lewis. Okay, so if everybody knows where Tanya's office is, I'm the door before her, and you'll see me in the back. Don't ever feel like I'm unapproachable. Knock on the door, or just I'm here. It's a joy to give this class because there are a lot of people before me that shared a lot of things with me, and that's what the philosophy of this company is all about. It's all about it's a training company, and we're all learning stuff. I still talk to meet with my mentor at least 4 or 5 times a year in person, let alone the number of times we talk on the phone. So, anytime. Okay, it's a great business. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
All right.
Does anybody feel like we need like a 2-minute break, or?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do a 2-minute break. I guess I should check my phone. too.
So, I just have to leave at 10:30. Is that okay? Just let me-
It is what it is, it's fine.
Yeah, how are you?
Oh, great, I thought you already signed them.
No,
Okay.
How was that process for getting a Google phone number?
Easy.
So how does that work? It's like on the same phone, you don't have to get on the phone, you just
Correct.
have two numbers.
Yeah, you just have like.
We all need this.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't needed it up until now. Let's see, where did my Google Voice go? I'll let you. I barely ever use it. And you could definitely use it, much more than I do. You can set it up as your main number,
I'll have to investigate it.
Yeah, just, Google won't hear his voice. So Google Voice, you just open it and you have your number set up and then you can get texts or calls. It's just another number. The cool thing about it is you can listen in as somebody's leaving a voicemail.
Oh, that is cool.
And you can pull it, you can say, I don't know, I'm here, as they're leaving a voicemail message. So you don't, you could listen first before you actually.
That's cool. So it's an actual app?
Yeah, it's basically just Apple, just the Google, just go to the
Okay, apps?
Apple apps and type in Google Voice. It's free. And I haven't played with it enough to know for sure, what the best way would be for me to use it.
Right.
But what I just decided to do, and I'll share this with the class, I guess, but
That was another thing that I was sort of looking at different apps. There's so many to choose from, but you want to talk to people about what they have found works really well because there's just so many that you can get
it's
lost.
just a tool though. I mean, it doesn't really
At the
matter.
end
There's
of
so
the
many
day.
different tools to do the same thing for the most part. But this is Google and it's free. And it's on your phone.
Yours was this one, right? Because there's a video one too. I wonder how that works.
I don't know what that is. It just says Google Voice.
Well, that's just another kind
Yeah,
of
that one.
tool. Cool. I'll look at that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yoni, you're back on your shakes, huh?
I'm on the 30-day again.
Ah,
I'm like halfway through.
Telling you.
I haven't been as disciplined as I
I
was
got on the
last time.
scale on New Year's Eve. Well, this was stupid. I should have waited, but I was like, oh my God.
I'm down 4 pounds. 4 pounds. Since January 2nd.
Yay.
But I'm really thirsty all the time for that. Holly and I have a shared love of beer.
Yes.
That's not on that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I convinced myself for a while that whiskey isn't as bad, but it's just you just don't feel as full.
Are you doing the whole 30?
Oh yeah.
Is that what that is that you're doing?
This is 30 days. And
But it's called the whole 30?
oh no. It's my wife has a health and wellness company called Arbonne, and they also do skincare and stuff. But they have a whole nutrition line, and so they do a 30-day cleanse. So it's no sugar, no dairy, no gluten, and non-GMOs, basically. So that you typically get everything you need out of the protein shakes. So at least one, usually during the 30 days, it's two of those a day, and then one clean meal. But you can snack. You're not going to go hungry. You can, as long as you choose good snacks, stuff that isn't sugar, gluten, dairy, or any kind of a GMO. So I end up eating a lot of almonds and cashews and some fruit, stuff like that. Better. All right, give it a couple more minutes. So I have just under an hour more. Everybody back? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 2 more. 1 more. Okay. So we're early on into this course. Who did the first one? The rev up? Who was the Brad facilitated and
Well, I guess they're taking over for Tanya.
right.
So Mary was in here first. and
She
then Brad.
facilitated and then Brad was the guest.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Good. Yeah, and I think what you guys, hopefully, what you'll get, what I have a lot of confidence that you will get from these classes is that there's no right or wrong way to do this business. And it can be very, very simple. It's just doing it and being consistent and following it through and doing it at a high level, you know, with your true, genuine you behind it is the part that isn't as easy, right? But it's the difference between failure and success in this business is the consistency. And I truly believe now more and more is that genuine element. There's nothing about Dave Hastings that isn't genuine in what he does every day. I mean, that's pretty clear, right? And I think that his entire sphere, his 600 people, but especially those top 50, 60 people in his database have no questions about it, and that's how he can afford to do business 100% by referral. Like he said, you don't need 1,000 or 2,000. He doesn't put a stamp on 1,000 or 2,000 pieces a month. It just doesn't happen. So he's built out a business out of something very simple, and I think very, very genuine. And it's like going back to the basics. The birthdays. He actually sings to people on their birthday. I mean, what did he not mention? He didn't talk about Facebook. He didn't talk about internet marketing, digital marketing. He didn't talk about social media. He didn't talk about the drip campaign necessarily. I mean, he has one, but it's pretty simple, right? It's the 4 inspirational quotes once a month, right? Or once a week. He does it once a week. And then 1 mail piece every month, and a couple of calls. It's how much more simple than that? I mean, that's basically, it's awesome hearing him say all these things, because me, after 12 years, number one, you get the example of him doing it double that period of time and more and having success at his level. And 2, it's not the shiny new object. It's like the same old, tried and true, and it works because he's real and he's genuine behind it, right? So even like the birthdays, it's not the Facebook HBD that like I'm guilty of 90% of the time, right? But it's like the actual call and sing, and that's like what's going to be more personal,
I mean, I think you can use technology. You do using BombBomb. I think that's really cool that you do that.
Right. Yeah, and I just actually, so BombBomb, have you guys heard of BombBomb? BombBomb is like a MailChimp or a Constant Contact. It's just an email delivery service, but its specific differentiator is that it's video. So you can send a video email, right? You can make any email message that you would otherwise send, you can send it in the form of your face, record it as a video, and putting it in front of them as an email that they receive, okay? It's an awesome tool. Look into it, you know, because it's not expensive, and it's an awesome tool, especially because Facebook themselves is saying that by 2019, 90% of the content on Facebook is all going to be video, right? So we know the video is the way everything is going. If you're going to, you know, if you're going to delve into any kind of technology, I'd be thinking about technology that is related to video, okay? And how that might help you keep your business simple, right? So what Holly's speaking to is with BombBomb, I have my clients' birthdays put in there and also the anniversary dates of when we do transactions. And I have a video that goes out to them on those dates. It says happy birthday. And if I screw up and I don't keep up and I don't check and realize that it's their birthday that day, I have a generic pre-recorded message that has my face saying happy birthday to them. But even better, it actually prompts me before each person's birthday and says it's this person's birthday. So I have an option to kind of override that generic message and record a really personal one. It's just another tool to be on top. You know, it's just another tool, like he said. You use the CRM as a tool to keep you on point. Remember who to call, what to call about, and when you do, what to say. Right? It's literally that simple. Sometimes not easy, but then we use tools like Facebook and LinkedIn and stuff to fill in the blanks, okay? We know who we're going to call because we made up our database list. When we're going to call, well, he said he doesn't like to let 3 or 4 months pass max, right, before he talks to his main people. And actually, his main people he's calling once a month, right? But the other 550, they're getting no more than every 3 or 4 months, right? So now what am I going to call about? Well, that's probably the hardest part. And if you really don't have a date for their birthday or some kind of anniversary, then yeah, that's maybe a good reason to look them up on Facebook and find out what's important, right? You only got to call them 3 or 4 times a year. Check Facebook 3 or 4 times a year on each person, and you have a reason to call, you know? Even if the call is, hey, I want to make sure your email address is still the same. Like,
Yeah. I've been doing that, like going through who my sphere is, and then realizing, oh my God, I really didn't have their address to send the card I'm writing to them, so then I text them about that.
and it's amazing, guys. Like, it's like such basics. These are such basics, right? Figure out who to call, figure out when you're going to call them, and then figure out what you're going to call them about. It's like, and like you said, do nothing else, and you've got a business plan. That's it. Now I'm 13 years in, and I'm like going back to that basics. And what have I been doing? I'm going through my A's, my A pluses, my B's, and my C pluses. And I'm making sure that every single one of them is at least set up to remind me to call them.
I see how agents get overwhelmed, because aren't we all getting those emails of the next best solution of what we need to sign up for, some
Right.
seminar or webinar we need to see of some product? It's like,
That's exactly right. And I would keep Dave in mind and keep me in mind in the element of saying, you know, keep it simple. Keep it simple, stay focused. It doesn't need, you know, he does the 4 inspirational quotes. It can be the recipe things. I personally like to have it be sort of more directly tied to real estate, but then every single piece shouldn't be, right? When you do call for a birthday call, it's like, happy birthday. It's not, oh yeah, by the way, who else do you know, right? It's just a happy birthday call, and that's okay, right? If it's the one and only call you ever make, then figure out a way. If you're really not going to get your act together to call them more than once a year, and you're calling them on your birthday, then probably ask for their business on their birthday if that's what it's going to take, because otherwise the consistency matters is what I'm trying to say, right? Once a year is probably not consistent enough, would be my 2 cents. There's so much of what he said that I like love hearing because it only resonates me getting back to the basics, you know. Just like Holly said, we as agents, and Dave said it himself, I've said it to my wife, I don't know how many times, like all I have to do is come up with something and sell it to a bunch of realtors, and I probably make more money doing that than I do selling real estate, right? Because we as realtors are targets and we buy it. Because we always say there's got to be an easier, better, faster, you know, unique selling proposition way. Be real. Hit your people, you know? And then if you don't have people, then your focus is finding people and being real with them. And if you can do that super genuinely and it's in you and it's your personality and it's the way that you roll in your life on Facebook, then awesome, right? But me, inherently, like, it's just, I don't like Facebook, and I have over 1,000 friends on my personal page, right? And I used to be able to say that with pride, and I would say every single one of those people, if I called them, they'd pick up and know who I am. Okay, now it's like 1,200, so I can't tell you that it's as quality-based as it was, you know? And I'm still not using Facebook with a very specific, you know, plan to have that be the way that I do my business. But I'm using it to maybe fill in on my opportunity to get in front of them as the knowledge broker, as, you know, as trying to keep, you know, gain some kind of real estate in their brain when it comes to real estate at all, right? All right, so I'm going to break this down back to kind of the curriculum. So theoretically, I should have covered like the first 20 pages or so of your booklet before Dave came in. Dave would have been like between page 20-ish and 35. And so I know I didn't get anywhere near getting through the first 20 pages. Let's see if I can do that kind of quickly. But before we even push on, like, I really want to maybe highlight and honor what Dave brought, because what I was beginning to say was, we, unlike at most companies, you know, you guys are going to get exposure to just the best of the best. I mean, we, as an office, have huge market share. We produce more than most. You know, bottom line is we just perform at a higher level. And you're getting the best of the best within the office, giving you what they got and what they do. And they're not holding anything back. And that's super unique and super powerful. And I hope that that's something you guys actually feel as more than just the lip service of me saying it. You know, Brad's awesome. Dave's awesome. It's like an honor to be nominated to be able to be, you know, to address you guys on the second. Hopefully I'll bring something of value then as well, you know. So, okay, let me see if I can go through this really, really quick and just hit some highlight, like, concepts. But I do want to hear maybe from you guys what maybe one or two big ahas that you got from Dave.
How that you really can do it with a smaller database. You don't need the thousands, you just need the core really solid group. So that's what I was hoping.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's so much energy trying to go
Totally.
or buy the people or find all that stuff, and they're not really contacts at that point.
Exactly. It's not about the quantity of the database.
It's not the way I want to do it either. I want to keep it smaller and more, you know.
I you know, do open houses, and I would get really upset if not more than 10 people would show up to an open house. Number one, if you did nothing before that open house, and you're expecting that 3-hour period of time to be productive, and all you did was put signs out before that. And if you got 10 people, you did amazingly well, because then you got like 10 at-bats. But if you got 1 or 2 names out of it that you can follow up with their permission, that you might be able to do business with them, that's probably the real win. But the real win would have been the 100 doors you knocked on before inviting people to the open house, looking for somebody that they might know else in the neighborhood that's looking to buy or sell real estate, right? So but my point there is that it's not about the 3 hours spent in the open house hoping for 10 people to come through. It's about the quality of the effort you made and the interactions and the time that you spent to have that open. If nobody shows up to that open house, but you made 4 or 5 awesome contacts inviting the neighbors, who cares if nobody showed up to the open house? The open house was nothing more but the thing to talk about when you knock on their door to invite them, to have a reason to talk to them about real estate, right? I love inviting neighbors because I tell them you get to pick your neighbor.
Yeah, I'm going to shamelessly steal that. I remember when you said that.
Okay. I just got done talking about how important it is for us to report, but I feel like we're way behind. Okay. You guys should like find an account. I don't know if they talk to you, but find an accountability partner. Make sure that somebody is holding you to your goals and your numbers, and that somebody doesn't look like you in there.
They did it in the MREA class.
Okay.
You had to find a person, so.
Cool. I got a half hour left. I haven't even scrolled past the second slide. You've all done your E-Edge. I can't speak to how important it is. I don't care if it's the edge, honestly, but something that, like Dave said, is going to help you figure out who you're going to call, when you're going to call them, and what you're going to talk to them about. Okay? There's great tools in the KW Connect system tied to eEdge, and that helps you track all that stuff as well, guys. So take a look at that. The daily 10-4. 10 new contacts in your database. I mean, if you're getting 10 new contacts in your database every day, if they're truly quality contacts, he showed you don't need more than like 120 to do 12 deals a year. And most people aren't doing 12 deals a year, right? That's just the reality. It doesn't mean everybody can, so they can do much more. But it's easy to talk about this stuff. The harder part is actually like start now to put these places, these activities and these ideas into practice enough to make them real habits, so that you don't 12 years later go back and be like, oh my God, I got to clean out my database with a bunch of crap that I don't even want to call. If you don't want to call, they don't want to hear from you. And so how much rapport are you going to be building? And like, do you really want to make that birthday call? If I really don't want to call you for my birthday or for your birthday, then chances are you shouldn't be on my top list, right? And the notes, I mean, did you get that more? Erwin, you asked the question about the notes versus like the email. Did Dave drive that home pretty well? I mean, it's about being personal, right? And making that real connection with people. People remember that personal
It
stuff.
sounds a lot. 10 every day sounds a lot unless you've really got a big database.
It does overwhelming.
It can be a lot, but if it's the only thing you do, it's one of the more valuable things you can do because they're quality touches to those people.
Every day.
What else do you have to do? You know what I'm saying? When you tell me you got 6 other buyers that you got to put in the car and show property to, plus 3 listings that you're managing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, I'm going to be like, you know what? Hire an assistant and still make your 10 notes and your 10 contact calls every day, because that's the core of the business. That's the stuff that keeps your lead generation engine going, right? You can always outsource your real estate business, but you can't outsource your relationships with your clients. Somebody can put up signs, somebody can do the flyers, somebody could even do the disclosures with your clients if you were going to be that hands-off, which very few do, but some do, right? That's where you have more liability. It shows up for the disclosures. He said it's because he can make a good contact with his clients. Yes. He's also probably protecting his own tail because there's a lot of risk management in that, right?
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
How do you find out about their address? Because usually when you first met them, you get their contact, like phone number and email.
Yeah, I worry less about their physical address personally until I've built more of a real relationship. If it's early on, it's like, even if you meet them depends on where you're meeting them, right? But if it's the very first time you meet them, I think email, cell phone number, name is good enough. If you're having follow-ups, be like, hey, listen, I'm going to send you this information. What's a great address to send this to? The pre-listing packet, whatever. Unless you truly get, if you got the birthday information, you're going to get the address at the same time, right? Because hey, I'm going to be sending you a birthday card. When's your birthday and what address am I sending that card to?
But when you said 10 notes, it doesn't mean like, the first time you met them and then you send them a note.
Yeah, I mean,
But that means you need to have
yeah.
physical address.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it usually depends on the context of where you're meeting them. If you're meeting them at an open house, you'd be like, hey, listen, I really enjoyed meeting you. I want to be able to follow up with you. What's a good address? I want to send you a thank you card. If it's even that direct, tell them what it's why. A lot of times people just are, people get spammed an email and whatever in general. So some of them just don't like to protect it. From the very beginning, if I get a cell phone and I get an email address, it's good enough for me. If I'm really developing a relationship, then I might get the address so I can send the birthday card and I can put them in my ongoing stuff. But until I know they really want to get that stuff from me, I'd rather not even spend the stamp. Until they're qualified, until you've been able to say, hey, like Dave said, Yvette, I appreciate that your mother is in real estate. Is she in California? Is she licensed in California? No, she's not. Oh, great. So I'd love to be able to have a referral relationship with your mom for the clients that she's servicing from, you said Florida, great, to San Diego, and I can pay her a referral fee for any deal that she refers from me from Florida here to San Diego. And likewise, when you and I do work for business together, of course I would honor your mother, but she really isn't going to be able to help you with San Diego real estate. So why don't we just make sure we pay her a referral, right? But it's like, once you've developed some bit of rapport, it shouldn't be that hard to get the rest of the information. I don't know that I would ask for it up front because you're probably not going to send anything right away. If it's a thank you card, you know, where do you work? You know, even in those general conversations, you can always send it to the office and then later on develop and get their home address or whatever. There's ways to make that contact. Even if you Facebook and Google them, you know, you're going to have LinkedIn, you're going to figure out where they work and send it to the work address to the card, you know, initially. But I would focus much more on email and text because that's what people check more often. And that'll help you build the rapport enough to get to like the, hey, what's your birthday and the sale mail address, because then you have a real reason to ask for it. It sounds weird, right? I would, maybe at the end, if there's time, I'm going to actually have you guys get on your phones to make calls. They'd probably kill me if I said that because it's important that you guys get into that habit of making calls, right? And the handwritten notes. So we've talked about that a lot. Okay. Okay, so they're wanting me to talk about targeting marketing. Targeted marketing first identifies a specific segment of an overall market and then tailors a marketing plan to the habits and preferences of that market segment. It's an important strategy for success, right? So target marketing, they're saying it identifies a specific segment of an overall market. So, you know, we talked earlier about maybe your church. Your church could be a specific market, right? And all the people who are members of the church, right? And then in this case, it's saying for an actual targeted marketing campaign, you want to identify a specific segment of that overall, let's say, church market. And Dave's approach was pick the 10 most influential people in that market and identify who knows the most about anybody. Clergy, the office staff, the secretary, the principal of the Sunday school, whatever it is, they're going to know and they're going to become the specific segment of the bigger market that you can maybe leverage to maybe get those people's birthdays first, right? Or make them your main people why you want to show your value to. We can do that geographically. You can be like, I love the Poway Unified School District, right? And so any home sold in Poway Unified is where I'm going to be. Well, great. You know, I may choose to focus specifically on elementary schools first only, or maybe only the Poway Unified Schools that happen to be in Rancho Penasquitos or whatever. You know, but the idea is to try to get as specific as you can and still allow yourself enough of a market, right, to work with, where you can do a specific follow-up type of marketing to, and it's going to resonate for them. It's the same reason I know whether they're owners or they're renters, right? And you noticed as well, you know, he echoed a lot of what we were talking about initially, which is qualifying that database, right? It's the true quality of knowing that maybe they're brothers in the real estate business. It's important to know that, but it's also important to know whether they're in San Diego, right? It's also important to know, I've been bold enough to be like, listen, your brother, he's in San Diego, I get it. Like if you don't use your brother, you're gonna like have a family problem. I get it. So you're obligated to work with your brother. I would never even be so presumptuous as to think that I'm going to get in the way of that relationship. But let me ask you something. I mean, your brother, you just told me he just started in the business and he would be very upset if you didn't work with him directly. I get that. But does that mean that you're going to refer to you everybody who asks you if you know a great agent? Sometimes they'd be like, you know what, the truth is he is kind of green, so I don't know if I feel good about like referring my work buddies to him because I don't know how good he is, but he's my brother, so I got to use him. So yeah, I'll continue to refer. And I've called past clients and been like, hey, it was great doing business with you. Let's do something again. Or who do you know? They'll be like, oh, you know what, Yoni, you were awesome, but I have to let you know, like, my wife's sister just got her license, so I don't know that I can, you know, use you next time and planning on moving. I'm like, I totally appreciate that, but, you know, you obviously don't have an obligation to give them every referral you would ever come up with, or would you feel obligated for those as well? Qualify further. That's it, right? Sometimes they'll be like, no, I got to refer them to business too. But I've had it be like, yeah, that's actually a good point. I'd have to use it myself, but I don't think I'll refer. So I'll continue to refer you. Awesome. You know, and then you just feel like happy that you asked the follow-up question versus taking them off your database, right? So they asked the question, how will you know when a buyer or seller makes the decision to buy or sell? How will you know when a buyer or seller makes the decision to buy or sell?
They sign on the bottom line.
What's that? If they sign? Yeah, that's if you're actually working with them, they're either signing to write an offer, or if you're asking them to work with you, then they're signing a contract with you one way or the other, listing agreement or a buyer broker agreement. But the answer to the question is, how do you know when they're ready to buy or sell? Short of being in the mix and asking for the business, you don't know. You wouldn't know, right? So the only thing you can do is use a simple system to stay in front of them and make sure that when they think real estate, they're taking a deal. That's the level. Okay. There's a video here. Which is a 10-minute video. Which I don't even know if I know how to approach. They told me that the video would be linked to the PowerPoint, and it's not. What is that? Green folders.
Click on the writing.
Did I miss something?
Watch the video.
I don't know what the videos are. I do know if I had to go into like KW Connect, find it. Here you go.
Here we have Nancy. She is using her database to lead generate. Because her contacts are organized, she is able to make effective calls that yield results.
Hello, Mr. Smith. This is Nancy from Keller Williams Realty. How are you today?
You can see that because she took time to build, organize, and nurture her database, her business is growing and becoming profitable.
Okay, so you're not moving. Is there anyone else who is? I wanted to talk to you about the hiring you put in online for a new home. Yes. Well, can we meet at 2 o'clock on Tuesday? I'll put you down in my books. Thank you so much.
Here is Nancy. She doesn't think she needs a database. She has a system. Watch as she tries to lead generate.
Hello, Mr. Smith. Oh, I'm so sorry, Mr. Johnson. This is Nancy. We met a couple weeks ago. You moved a month ago. Gosh, I'm so happy for you. I'm so sorry. Okay. Well, is there another time we can talk?
As you can see, An organized database is your most valuable business asset. A powerful database produces productive and predictable leads. The results speak for themselves.
That spark any ahas or any thoughts for you guys?
Get organized.
Just to stay organized. I mean, and not only that, but it's also, simple things, right? So it's like they've talked to you guys about having a schedule, right? And then really, it's not just as simple as having a schedule, it's sticking to your schedule. And Holly's gonna laugh because she knows I don't know how to stick to my schedule. But here's the pain of not sticking to your schedule, right? So I have a CRM, it's a top producer. I use top producer. Why? Because it's cheap and it's simple enough and it works well enough. And I have every day, I can go in there and it tells me which calls I'm supposed to make that day based on what I told it to do, right? I scheduled the calls. Today, I made a phone call to a guy who I had a listing appointment with. He decided to sell the home himself, Isabel. Okay. I put him in my tickler to call him again, thinking he's either going to sell it, which case it's done, or if he's not, then this will be roughly the amount of time I'm going to give him before I see that he's going to fail and then maybe try to list. I ended up seeing that he ended up listing. Okay, he listed with a guy that when I met with him, he mentioned that he had a buddy who would help him buy another house, but he wasn't even a full-time agent, so he wasn't sure he wanted to go that route, whatever. So it didn't work by himself, and then he hired the half-time agent or whatever. So I made another tickler to call again to be like, I wonder if this guy's going to get it done, right? And this is based on, guessing that he gave him a 30 or 60-day contract. So that's when I'm going to set the time up to just double check on the property again. Long story short, I was supposed to call this guy on January 11th, based on my hallucination of when the right timing would be. And I called today, and as I was calling him, I'm researching the address, and it just got relisted 5 days ago. I was supposed to call on the 11th. Today's the 18th. Had I called on time and stuck to my schedule, I would have had a real chance of being the one that listed the property 5 days ago. In my world, in my mind, right? He relisted with the same guy, which is who knows, but I take that as my fault 100%, that I didn't stick to my own schedule and stick to my own call schedule and make the calls I'm supposed to make on the days that I said I was going to make them. Because it's just like all that follow-up over all this period of time could be lost unless the guy fails a second time around, which who knows, right? But there's like a real simple everyday example of like, keep it simple, follow your systems, and then stick to your schedule. Because that's like a $15,000 commission that I didn't follow through on, basically, And as much as lead generating is like everything that you guys are going to hear from now until the day you're no longer in this business, the follow-up is where a huge amount of the money is lost because you spent all this time generating this lead, or even if somebody gives you a referral, there's still a lead that you're nurturing until they choose to do business with you. And sometimes they make the decisions that they need to make for whatever reason they need to make it. And he had to be a FSBO. Maybe I didn't offer enough value in having him hire me the first time around. Just like buyers sometimes have to lose out on a couple of offers that they make, especially in this market, before they start listening to the advice and how you should be making offers. But on this one, I own it more. It wasn't him that he found solutions to his problem. He's got his property listed again, whether it sells or not, that's another story. Okay, so there's a Keller Williams lingo that is going to be important that you guys are just kind of a little bit familiar with, that you'll see in the e-edge stuff and that you'll just want to be familiar with. It's pretty straightforward, but it's still worth talking about METs and not METs. And you'll see that in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, which if you haven't looked at, definitely go through that book and try to, you'll probably go through that book over several times over your career. and you'll take different bits and pieces at a time, depending on where you are in the business and also where your headspace is at. You're just going to get different stuff reading, you know. But there are models and just very simple things that will either speak to you or not each time that you go back to the book. But one of the very, very basic things is it talks about the Mets, the people that you already have met, who theoretically know you just like you know them, right? They're the ones that you've been putting in your database. And then the not Mets or the haven't Mets, there's a whole other strategy around getting to more people and having them become Mets that you then put into your database. Okay. So sources of haven't Mets. Actually, I'm getting into stuff that Dave was basically talking about, right? He asked about church, sports teams, your kids' stuff, you know, even LinkedIn contacts. I mean, you can go through your own Facebook and your own LinkedIn and friends of friends and go through them, and you might know friends of your friends that you didn't think about when you went through your first original list. Okay, guys? So when he said you got to come up with your first 50 or whatever, it is easier than you think. You just got to like put a little bit of thought to it. And you've probably seen the exercise, you'll see it on one of these Ignite classes, where you can go through the alphabet, write down for A, you know, accountant, B, it's banker, C, it's a carpenter or whatever, and just go through every profession in the alphabet. And chances are you're going to think of the name of somebody that you know that does that profession. That's already 26 out of 50, right? And if you're like going to a hairdresser and that hairdresser doesn't know that you're in the business, and if you can't get that hairdresser's commitment to refer you business, then you probably should find a hairdresser that will, right? I mean, and let them know, hey, by the way, I'm now in real estate, and I know that you've been working with me for 20 years, you've been cutting my hair, and I love you, you do it better than anybody else, but you know what I love more? Money, and growing my business. And so can we count on growing each other's business? I've been referring people to you for the 20 years that I've been here, because I love how you do my hair, and guess what? Now I'm in real estate, so I need you to, who do you know that's looking to buy, sell, or invest? You don't think the hairdressers know everything about their clients? They're almost like marketers, right? But if you're professionals, hair people, banker, accountant, lawyer, doctor, those are sources of business. And if they tell you outright, if you can qualify them to be points of contact or high influence people, one of the top 10 out of the 50, let's say, in that group, you've got real value out of these people. All right, I'm going to skip through some of the stuff that Dave, I think, did go through. Putting it all together. We have 10 minutes left. So I want to try to go through this stuff kind of quick, guys. And then more than anything, I'm just, like Dave, I want to open it up to questions in general. Okay, so on page 35, you guys have the same 35, it's a putting it all together in an action plan. So I want you guys to commit to a goal here, you know, like continue to add contacts to your database, but put a number to it, like how many and by when, right? And if that's 5 per week, fine, or this says 10 per day, right? But whatever it is, it better be a number that you guys can commit to, and you're not going to beat yourselves up about that if it didn't happen, enough that you can say, all right, I didn't do it today, but that means I owe from yesterday and today, and I'm going to actually commit to do it, right? Create groups in your e-edge database for organization. So that's the met versus not met, or owner versus renter, you know, whether they're in San Diego or not in San Diego, they're your church group, you know them from your kids' Little League, whatever, right? And then you assign, you know, the contacts to each group, put all your contacts in a campaign, right? The campaign might be as easy as the one mailer a month that he does, or the one email a week, or the call once a quarter, right? And by the way, when you go into eEdge, when you guys start playing around with that, you'll see there are campaigns. The 8x8 touches, there's one for a buyer, one for a seller. 8x8, that just means it's one piece of marketing that goes out, or a reminder to call. The 8th could, or number 4 of 8 could be a call, right? And it's for your hot buyer or hot seller lead. So once a week for 8 weeks, you're touching them one way or the other, whether it's a call, a text, a handwritten note, an email, or something you sent them in the mail. Or, I don't know, You know, whatever other creative thing you want to do, there's no written way of doing it. But the idea is that you're touching them once a week for 8 weeks straight. By then, hopefully you've converted them. If not, then they go into your, what they would otherwise call the 33, which is the people who aren't maybe as hot to buy or sell in the next 0 to 30 or 90 days. But they are your database that you want to continue to have be you on their radar, right? So Dave's 12 plus 4 emails a month. That's 5. You know, one mail, 4 emails, and like 2 calls, right? So 4, 5, 6, like 7. Well, let's do that different. 1 a month is 12. 4 is 52. So he already had 64 touches before he even made a phone call to each person in his database. And we're saying 33 touches like a minute. You know, and I think the new Keller Williams is like 36 or something like that. Not 32, but 36. Or 33, it's 36 or something like that.
I thought 1 a week was a lot. No.
We think it is, but if we hit him different ways, text, email, mail, you know, social media, video email, an actual phone call, you know, eventually you will figure out, because you're making notes every time in your database, which they responded to. Did they actually, I mean, I could be calling the person every quarter after quarter after quarter after quarter, and my note says left message, left message, left message. And if all of a sudden I was like, text, and it's like, bing, they come right back and they're like, hey, what's up? Then you're like, maybe I should text them next time instead of calling,
That's what I.
because they work better with text, right? Or if you're, and you want to switch it up too, because eventually they stop reading the emails, or they stop, like Dave said, they stop caring what you sent them in the mail, especially if it's all real estate related and they're not real estate, you know? That's why you got to keep it fresh. But that's why it's 33 touches, because if it was 1 call a month and that was enough, it would be called a 12 touch. It's not enough, right? And they always want you to call, because one-on-one or person to person or real actual human contact is going to be better than not. That's why the email, or not the email, but the actual phone call or the handwritten note is going to be much more personal on the birthday than just the HBD on Facebook, right? So I feel like we've just been beating this horse kind of dead in terms of the benefits of really just working your database correctly, but it can never be overstated. And it's, like I said, really simple. And as long as you don't overcomplicate and get into the shiny penny and the better way to reinvent the wheel, it's the majority of the people who do a huge amount of business, even if they've come up a way to convert tremendously from internet leads or what, you know, Dan Beard, he spends a ton of money generating leads with different marketing or whatever. I guarantee you there's a significant percentage of his business that is still core to referral business coming out of his past clients and people that he originally built his database with. And Dave's Hastings business is only that. And he's one of the top producers in the office, right? My business is 95% referral based. I do maybe that other 5% is the occasional web something I did or an open house that I did where I pick up a client. But otherwise, it's overwhelmingly referral based and sphere based. And for the last 2 or 3 years now, I'm tracking so much so that I know that 95% of my business is sphere and referral based, and 40% within that is repeat business now, right? So it's not like it's always brand new people that are getting referred through the database. It's like the same people, because if you did a good job and they liked you and they trusted you and you stayed in touch with them over the last 7 years before they last moved, then they're going to think of you again. What else? Let me go back and see if there's anything in those slides that I have to absolutely cover.
So where do we find the videos? Because there's a bunch back here on this page 39. Where do we go to find where you just found that one? No, it's in KW Connect though.
I'm not seeing which ones you're
Under
talking about. Page
education.
30?
Page 39.
Oh, 39. If you go to Connect.
Yeah, but where within it? Because that's a huge site.
Yeah.
Type it into the search engine bar, and it'll pop it up, and you can narrow it by videos?
I will look right now when we get there. I'll see if I can find it real quick.
You found it pretty quick, just like,
Yeah, you can type Ignite in on that. It's usually
okay.
a good start. Chairperson. Okay, and you guys have access to your missions, right? There's like you have
Yeah.
a mission before each course,
Oh, yes.
each class here, right? So you have access to know what that mission is before the third level is. Okay, so make sure you're caught up, because like week 1, it's all about e-edge and getting that all set up. That was a big part of your mission, right? So if for whatever reason you haven't finished that, don't let too many weeks go before you really get caught up, because like your call schedule, it'll be the 18th instead of the 11th, and you're gonna miss something, and you're only gonna have yourself to blame and be annoyed. But then doing that and doing it consistently and everything puts you into a position, like Dave said early on, and he didn't harp on it, and we didn't talk too much about it, but it's like having faith in that activity and having the consistency in those activities is gonna put you in a place where he's like, I'm firing that person that's taking up 80% of my day. And it's very, very hard when you don't have 3 or 4 deals in escrow to fire somebody. It's hard to fire somebody when you have, even if you have a dealer in escrow, right? Because they're your next check. But if they're gonna suck away your life and they're gonna be 80% of the time spent and they're not even gonna be 20% of your income that year, then move on. It's easier said than done, but let me tell you, there's nothing more empowering in this business than firing a client.
There's no client that wants to work with you more than something fired.
Yeah, I mean, I've had, I'll tell you, like, the last client I fired was a fraternity brother that I had already done business with in the past. And then he got married, and his wife was great, she was very nice, but I couldn't keep up with her. And that's like very rare. It's like I had my dad and I who worked together, both trying to service this one buyer, and it was what's the word in English? Insatiable, right? You just couldn't, I was never fast enough, response enough, time fast enough. She was always finding property faster than I could and never let me forget it. Like I would wake up angry in the morning, no longer worth it. Just no longer worth it. And I had to sit down with my buddy and be like, planted the seed so that the next week he could fire me, and he thought it was his idea, right? It was like, we meet 1 week in advance to be like, I want you to think about, possibly, by the way, I beat out her brother had just gotten into the business, and I still got them to work with me anyway. And then I was like, maybe it's time you consider working with family. They might better serve you better, And then the next week, he's like, we were thinking, and I think we might go to her brother. And I was like, I think that'll be great for you guys. In most other cases, I would have been like, maybe trying to come up with the right agent to refer them to, but, happy to let them go at the end of the day. 8x8, 33 touch. So the action plan, and that's the mission that we were talking about. So if you guys know how to access that, I just want to encourage you guys to stay on top of everything. Is there any specific action or maybe behavior change that you guys will adopt from what you've kind of gathered today from the page? For me?
The question about the 8x8. Because it says that you need to call like 4 times next 8 weeks, right? So that means every 2 weeks. You need to call your spirit contact. How do you do that? Because if I have a friend, let's say his name is John, and I'm close, but
Right.
I call him the second week, and then after that I call him again.
Like, yeah, you don't want to be annoying. Yeah. Well, keep in
Your
mind,
best friend sometimes.
for sure. It's still like weird, like, no, but keep in mind that the 8x8 is specifically for people who are showing signs of really being actively engaged in buying or selling now, right? So what you want to accomplish out of that 8-week period, sometime during that 8-week period, is them saying, yeah, I'm hiring you to help me buy a property, or I'm hiring you to sell my property, right? So if John is your buddy, but he's not looking to buy or sell real estate, then you're not going to have him on an 8x8. You're going to have him more on like a more general plan, which is like the 33, right? The 8x8 is going to be more specific to the active people who are, you know, telling you because you met them at an open house and they're like, we need to buy because the job transfer is happening now or whatever, right? Or sell for whatever reason, you know. But you know, the 8x8s are definitely specific to active prospects versus a contact in your database that you want to nurture and stay top of mind for what if and when they are ready or they know somebody that's going to ask them who they would work with. And the other thing that was subtle that we haven't discussed, but Dave never put it out there as, do you know anybody that's looking to buy or sell? Because it's not a yes or no question, right? It's a who do you know? Everybody knows somebody. We're coming from that assumption, right? Everybody knows somebody that's looking to buy or sell real estate, and he's 100% right that there's nobody who's more actively really primed to give you a referral than the client that you're working with right now before they even close escrow, because they're happiest before they even close, right? They're super excited. They're about to get their home. They're anxious. They're talking to the people at work about it. They're like, hey, look at all these homes my agent's about to show me this weekend, or hey, this is the home we're writing an offer on, or hey, what do you know about this neighborhood? I hear you live in Escondido. Should I be thinking about moving to Escondido? People talk about it because that's what they're living. And when they're in the real estate transaction, that's the best time to ask for the referrals. I do it when I first meet with them. By the way, I didn't do my job right if I didn't earn your referral by the time before we even close. So I'm telling them I'm going to ask, and then I'm going to ask during because they're happiest to do it because they're seeing me and hearing from me more often then, and they're happy with me, right? And then when you actually bring the result, they get the house they want or they sold for the right price, then they say thank you. You say, you know what, the best way to thank me is think of me when you've got somebody to buy, sell, or invest in real estate. By the way, who is that? Right? There's so many awesome resources on the website, KW Connect. Guys, go through it, do the homework, put in the time now while you can. When you're not bogged down with deals, you know? There's like 3 things you guys should be scheduling as far as I'm concerned, which is your training, your script practicing, so that you know what to say when you actually have to say it, and then say it, make the calls. That's it. Call people, know what to say, and know when to call them again. That would be my you know, it's the oversimplification, but it doesn't have to be more complicated than that. Any other questions? It's 4 o'clock. Time flies, I guess, when you're kind of having fun. Hopefully, anything I said was helpful. I know that what Dave said was helpful. I apologize I didn't go perfectly through all of this, but I think we covered most of it. And it's almost redundant looking at it over and over. I don't know how many times on the different pages. It's like the benefits of having the database, the benefits of having it organized, the benefits of using your database. And I would add quality of the database and then the consistency of interacting with that database. And the more you interact with it, the more it will grow because you're going to be finding ways to say, I bring value to you, I care about you, and for that reason they will bring return, you know? I've been on boards of, you know, charity organizations and I've been involved in whatever, and I've done it right and I've done it wrong. And doing it wrong is what Dave said. When you go into it thinking, oh, I'm going to get on the board so that everybody knows that I'm in real estate. No. I'm telling you, I've done it for years and I produced like 1 because like, okay, I am showing up, right? But the second I stopped being about, I want to make sure they know I'm here, and I started being like, oh, actually doing something for the organization, helping, raising money, making the calls that nobody else wants to make to fundraise or whatever it is that the organization's doing. Now you're doing something that matters to the organization, and that's what people care about because they're there for the organization, not to find their realtor, right? So I think you had a treat with Dave today. I think you'll continue to have top-notch people. And is there any other questions or comments or feedback for me so I can do this better next time?
I did very well.
Appreciate it, guys. Like I gave my cards out. Like I said earlier, you know, any questions, anything related to the business, you know, I don't know it all by any means. I'm constantly plugged into this stuff. I also show up to Ignite stuff all the time, so you will see me sitting in the same chairs as you guys with different people throughout the weeks, because they just, even if I've heard them again, I was going to be here for David either way. I mean, I have a very similar business makeup as he does. And at the same time, yes, I'm one less of his clients because I was his past client, but I'm no threat to his business, and he's by no means, you know, saddened to lose me in the or my uncle, theoretically, if I still have him. That's a good question, right? And I'd respect that because Dave knows what he's doing too, right? But it, you know, the point is, we can always improve in this business, and things are always changing with the technology and whatever. But my advice is always keep it simple. Keep it really, really simple. And then, you know, there's a million things you'll do. They'll teach you that you'll want to, you know, work your database, and then you'll want to have 3 different sources of where, you know, your business comes from. Maybe you choose what you're going to do to get to meet more than not Mets, and then you're going to develop the Mets, and then, you know, some other way, maybe it's internet marketing or whatever. I'm at the point where I'm simplifying, and I'm putting pretty much all my eggs in the Sphere basket, right? And until I feel like that is truly a well-oiled machine, then I'll get into some of the other stuff that I've dabbled with and never really followed through on. You know, whether that be calling expires, doing open houses, doing distressed property, working with investors, whatever other niche you choose to go after. And choose whatever it's going to be that, like Dave said, do something that you're going to enjoy, that you're going to be consistent with because you do enjoy it, and that resonates with you because people want it to be genuine, right? So if you can figure out a way to corner the, you know, Spanish-speaking immigrant community of San Diego, whether that's community or not, or even if it's as specific as there is a Puerto Rico house at Balboa Park, and figure out how to like become the guy there, you're going to meet people who love that you and them are both from Puerto Rico, and they're going to be happy to help you find things. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't have to be like whatever. And if you happen to be a golfer, then dude, what's better than buying the golf cart that has a sign on the back of it that says "Follow me" with your like YouTube channel thing on it, and all day long you're working as long as people are seeing that, and you're schmoozing with people on the golf course all day. I mean, you can't expect the sign to do all the work. You probably got to make some contacts while they're out there, but you're out in the sun playing golf, which is like not a bad way to build a real estate career, right? If that's what you like. Whatever it is. I think that's it, guys, for me for now. Yeah, thank you.